All right, guys, listen, this is a blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the finale. This will be the final discussion of the Kennedy era at Lucasfilm. And as you see, this is the fall of the empire, which will bring us up to the present date. So we have an all-star panel of guests joining us tonight. So we'll bring them in.
All wings reporting.
We've got Retro Nerd Girl, Kamran Pasha, Heath Robinson, and of course, Reina Creole. And we will be covering a vast spectrum here, including the theme parks. And also, we'll have a brief discussion at the end about what's coming next. And a few of our guests will be chiming in on that as well. So real quick, let's go around the horn. And why don't you tell everyone who you are and where they can find you? Retro, let's start with you.
Yes, I'm Retro Nerd Girl. I love old movies, and so I talk a lot about them on my channel. If you go on my channel on YouTube, you'll be able to find a lot of content on that. And every Saturday, I do a Saturday matinee movie that we watch together. So check that out. I'm also on X as well.
Awesome. And Kamran?
So I'm Kamran Pasha. I'm a writer, director, producer. I've been working in Hollywood for 24 years, or at least surviving Hollywood for 24 years, working for a portion of that at least. And I come on this lovely channel and other channels to give my perspectives on things. I've been on Reina Creole's channel several times. Hope to be on again in May. I've been on the Retro Nerd. I've been with Retro Nerd. I don't think I've been on your channel specifically.
Yes.
So we have to correct that. Yeah, and the best way for people to get in touch with me is my Patreon, where I not only give a lot of things we're going to talk about today. I've written reports on. I have every now and then some interesting scoops and points of view, and you can do some consulting stuff with me as well if you're a screenwriter or a novelist, or and most of my consulting clients are pretty happy with the service. They come back for more, so that's all can be done through my Patreon, which I'm sure will be linked in the comments. So,
yep, it will. And Heath, what about you?
My name is Heath Robinson. I run the Heath's Geekverse channel. That's my main channel where I talk about tabletop games, both reviewing and designing them. I also run the Table Talk channel, where a lot of the people here on this panel have been on, where we talk about stories and storytelling. So check out Heath's Geekverse and Table Talk on YouTube. Recently, I've also branched out to TikTok. And I'm also the creator and co-writer of The Cultists, a web show that's a mockumentary about modern-day Lovecraftian cultists who just want to worship Cthulhu in a world full of people who don't understand. And I created a cultist TikTok, and like 2 days ago, it surpassed 1,000 followers. So congratulations. Get over there on TikTok, and we're going to be continuing with that. So you can check out The Cultist on YouTube and on TikTok.
That's great.
Awesome. And Reina?
Well, folks, I'm Reina Creole, and you can find me on Instagram for pictures. You can find me on X, causing all kinds of problems, calling balls and strikes as I see them. And of course, on YouTube for various videos and live streams where I specialize in breaking down pop culture with zero filter whatsoever, and also talking about theme parks, because for me, theme parks are the physical manifestation of pop culture. And of course, I love movies from like the 80s to like the mid 2000s. And speaking of theme parks, I will be visiting the new Epic Universe Park tomorrow. So please do check out my channel for videos
That
and
is
live
awesome.
streams on that.
And yeah, we will actually, Lorena, we'll be touching on that in the future. The future, you see. We'll be talking about what's coming next for Lucasfilm and Disney, and we'll take a look at that. And Epic Universe is going to be part of that discussion. And who better to lead that than you?
Thank you.
So, well, let's get into it here. Part 8 of this discussion, the fall of the Empire, all the way up to the current date.
May the force be with us.
All right. So where we left off, we covered Order 66 2 weeks ago, which was the removal of several people out of Lucasfilm and pretty much Kathleen Kennedy's securing herself in the Civil War, kind of taking out or defeating, in my opinion, the Jon Favreau camp and solidifying it. However, in order to do that, she had to cross a few lines, which then turned, I think, some forces on the inside against her. And then last week we covered Year of Rebellion, in which we saw in 2023 a lot of outside forces laying siege not only to Disney, but also to Lucasfilm itself. And now today we have the fall of the Empire. So picking right up with it, we saw that Gina Carano, who we thought had peacefully gone away, right? She was going to leave, and no problems there with Walt Disney World. She comes back into the picture here, and this time she comes in hot. She comes in swinging, and she is going to sue the Walt Disney World for what she believes is a wrongful termination for her simply expressing herself on social media in what, in my opinion, was rather benign. We've all seen cancel culture at work, and we've seen some charged comments from the past come back to haunt people. We saw it in the Oscars this year, and now we see it happen to her as well. And when you compare what she said to some other people who are also working with her on the show, it seemed to be a little lopsided in the treatment of the two, of the actor and the actress. So now it's 2024. Things are changing, and we have Gina Carano coming back in, and she is going to sue Disney. And not only is she coming in to sue Disney, she's got some deep pockets. Lorena, you want to start us off? What did you think when you heard this when the news broke?
Wow. When I heard that this broke, that she was suing Disney, I was like, good for her. 100% good for her, because those of us, especially those of us on social media who've seen everything that's going on, where, Mark Hamill and the likes of Pedro Pascal could say whatever the heck they wanted and it was fine. But Gina says something, like you said, Doug, very benign. And Lucasfilm just, well, first of all, didn't have the guts to say to her face, just dropped that she was fired in an article in the Hollywood Reporter that was posted on a Friday. Any news you want to bury, you drop on a Friday, which they did. So when I heard that she was suing, I'm like, good for her. And I hope it goes through discovery and she does not settle, because I want to know all, well, that'll be revealed, all of Disney's underhanded dealings, because we're not imagining a lot of the stuff that we see going on, where you see Lucasfilm going over the fans, stuff that's showing up in the Hollywood trades, people getting their channel struck. We knew something was going on. So Discovery was just like, yeah, please let us see what's been going on.
My personal belief is that this is part of this era. And I do believe we're at the tail end of this era. I'm not a big fan of the cancel culture being used in this way. That simply by having disagreements like that you completely ice somebody, that they're not allowed to participate in society or in the program, or to basically overstate the danger the point of view presents to the overall narrative. There's a wide spectrum of opinions in the world. I grew up listening to all sorts of opinions on that spectrum, and everyone was still allowed at the table. That is the right society, in my opinion. That's the right way to do this. And I think overreacting to people on the spectrum is a bad precedent. And I think we will return to good form going forward. And hopefully, you never know, this could actually be one of the things that sets things right between the way a corporation can or an entity can treat somebody for expressing a view or just an opinion that might go against the collective in that way. Retro, what were your thoughts with Gina Carano coming in hot again?
Well, I think we got a tip off a little bit earlier, if memory serves me correctly. Elon Musk put out a tweet saying anybody wants to.
Yes,
Has
he did.
anybody-
Oh yeah, that's
exact
right. I
wording.
forgot about that.
And she said, yes, I would love to be, part of that.
She said it publicly. She responded to him publicly. Yeah.
That he would fund the lawsuit against Disney or any company. I think I'm not sure if it was specifically, but because of their views, because of free speech, and she said yes, and I think the entire, at least I would say 2/3 of the internet was like, yeah, because I know myself was like, yes, I feel like what happened to her was unjust, and not just what we could see from her tweets and the reaction to it, but also what was going on behind the scenes, which I think she spoke at on different platforms about her experience and how she was sort of coerced into this strange and unusual, like, brainwashing, like whatever her views were, she needed to change, and she challenged that, which I think is really awful. I respect anyone who has different views than I do. I don't want to change them to the point of, like, getting them fired from their jobs. And
Right.
so I think this is where I was hoping that society would work itself out, which it hasn't. And so this is the perfect example of someone, like, actually fighting back, and she has nothing to lose right now, because the other projects that she had worked on, they didn't quite work out for her. I don't necessarily think that she's right or left, because I just think that she is a woman who's got a wonderful set of skills that has just been misplaced in Hollywood. They don't know what to do with her. And
right.
So,
well, and a lot of times a lot of people, I think her included, they get pegged as, quote, right wing just by disagreeing with one position on a large array of positions. They might agree with 99, but if they disagree with one, then suddenly they're associated. I would even say they're associated with far left or far right. I remember I posted on this. I didn't think it was as big of a deal as it was, but I took her side when I was upset when she was let go. And I said this in the previous stream. I was writing The Heroine's Labyrinth, and I was studying all sorts of heroic women in fiction. And Cara Dune was, fast rising. So I was disappointed that we lost one of them at a time when it seemed like our culture was so eager to find them. So it just seemed like a little bit of a clash, if you will, of ideals there. So, Heath, Cameron, I'll let you have last word. But Heath, what did you think about this?
I mean, very similar to what other people have said. I mean, why not go forward? Like, you see, especially after the Elon tweet. I remember that especially. But thank you very much for bringing that up, Retro, because I had forgotten it. That everybody was like, "Oh, look, Gina Carano. That's exactly what we should go on. That she should go forward with this lawsuit, and why not go forward with it? Why not?" I'll turn it over to Cameron.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this lawsuit at length in the past. It was, I don't know the reasoning for timing. She certainly has intense backers with Elon Musk, but she is, thankfully for her family, is an affluent person. It's not like she needs his money. There's people that he has. She is from a very successful family that worked very hard for its success. So her choice to do so at this time has always been of interest to me, because she could have done so before out of her own pocketbook, right? And so why did she wait this time? This is speculation on my part, but speculation. I feel like my speculation is that I wouldn't be surprised if she had, maybe, because she's still, I'm sure Ms. Carano still has very strong relationships or friendships with people connected to Lucasfilm. I'm sure she's friendly with people like Jon Favreau. And so she may have gotten a sense from the political dynamics inside of Lucasfilm, and that the timing might be right for this at this moment. It may not have been right a year before, right? That's speculation on my part, but I always ask a question on my Patreon, and I ask it in general, 2 questions. Why now? And cui bono? Who benefits, right? Those questions will answer everything in Hollywood. Once you ask those 2 questions, why now and who benefits, right? And so, so that's, it's of interest to me that she chose to go at this time, because it would certainly be strategically wise to do so if she'd gotten any indications that she might be at a moment where there's an opening for success.
Right. So, and part of me, my instincts tell me that this is a bigger deal. This is the rebels coming down the trench run with the targeting computer on, and the Empire's like, evacuate in our moment of triumph.
I think I said that last week. I think I used that exact reference last week, which is correct. And so it is. I mean, I've only had a couple of DMs with Ms. Carano, and I don't know her, at all beyond those. And so, I wish her success, but I have a feeling that there's many layers of information that she has that we do not have.
Right. And I'll skip that. I don't normally do this, but it's better to talk about it now instead of returning to it later in the stream.
Well, it's connected to the thread. I mean, this is where we are today with this.
Right. So if you skip ahead to 2025, or, I guess late 2024, actually, she's going to get Discovery. This door has been opened. And once that door is open, I have heard discussions on how sticky this gets, but there's going to be some look into Disney's, how Disney operates, how they talk about their actors and actresses, how they pay their actors and actresses, what they think is okay, what they think is legal, all sorts of things that'll come up in this process. And it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where Gina doesn't come out on top on this. So this could be, we've talked about it before, Lucasfilm wasn't just a participant in the culture war. They were holding the banner with their, hitting the snare drum, leading this attack. They were right on top of this the whole time, starting in 2012, to 2015, when the culture really started to shift. And you had Rey Skywalker right there in the girl boss era. So Lucasfilm has been in the heart of this, and I think Lucasfilm might be right in the heart of the turnaround as well. So that's where we are with this. This lawsuit has proceeded, and the discovery phase could turn up a lot of information about how not just Disney operates, but I think also how corporations operate. And this could have widespread effects in all of corporate culture, in the Western world eventually, in how you can handle people in the age of social media. In the past, it has been eliminate them. No questions, eliminate them. And now I think that's going to have to be thought of. They're going to have to think twice before they do that.
And if I may just add just on this, because on my Patreon, through my sources, I was able to confirm that some interesting inside information on this specific, issue of the motion, that there's apparently, what I've been told is there's a division between Lucasfilm's internal in-house lawyers and Disney corporate's in-house lawyers. And Lucasfilm's in-house lawyers, from what I've been told, want to settle this because they've seen what's coming in the discovery and they realize how devastating and embarrassing it will be for their company, right? However, and I've been told this now for many months, the Disney corporate lawyers have been telling Bob Iger, this is nothing, boss. We can handle this. We're going to make this go away. Well, they're failing pretty badly at it. And apparently there's a lot of pressure coming in from Lucasfilm's in-house counsel to Iger saying, I think you need to stop listening to these guys, boss. You really want to settle this. Whether who he listens to right now, he hasn't settled it. So far, corporate legal seems to be in charge and they're leading them off a cliff.
we've analyzed their attacks, sir, and there is a danger.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
you know,
And Iger seems to be deluded like Moff Tarkin at this moment.
well,
Yeah.
I think there's one other factor that we might as well mention in this. You know, Iger is due to step away soon. Kathleen Kennedy, I'm firmly in the camp of believing she will be stepping away. So there's a very real scenario that when all of the fallout of this comes out, Iger and Kennedy aren't even at the helm anymore, and the trades can then blame everything on, well, they're gone, so we don't do this anymore. You know, so there is that. So to complicate matters worse, since we're getting into the trenches. You know, the fall of the Empire doesn't happen usually from one, think Luke blew up the Death Star. That didn't destroy the Empire. You know, the next film was The Empire Strikes Back. So there's a lot of things that chip away before you can have the fall of the Empire. I believe this is a very serious problem on the internal side of Lucasfilm and Disney. But there's another problem brewing. And another thing that seemed to be mentioned in an earlier stream that is now coming back. Do you guys remember Karen McCarthy?
Yeah.
She filed a lawsuit in 2023. We mentioned this in our last stream last week. Let's see. In March 8th, 2023, she filed a lawsuit. She felt she was wrongfully terminated, very similar to Gina, but very different reasons why. She was let go. She was brought in as a professional to work on the Acolyte. What was her position? She was brought in.
Line producer, which would be the actual physical person who puts the budget together and hires the crew and manages the day-to-day production. It's the actual producer on set that's keeping the thing afloat.
Okay, right. So, and we talked about this. She's like, hey, you guys hired me. I moved to London for crying out loud. And then you let me go. I don't think there was really a show. Something's, this was bogus. And she sued. In Hollywood, you do not sue just because there's a disagreement, because this could be a career-ending thing. Once you sue an employer, the word is out, this person might turn around and sue you. Be careful. So when you do this, it is carefully calculated on something that they believe is egregious and concrete enough to actually go through with this. And she did. And here, now we're in 2025, right? There's a part 2 to this lawsuit. The complaint alleges that Lucasfilm, A, misrepresented the Acolyte, had a budget that was approved by Disney when it did not. 2, that the proposed budget was actually $185 million, not the $225 million budget that they told McCarthy that she had signed up for as a line producer. And 3, that the proposed runtime for the show. So all of these things were presented to her incorrectly. That's what she's alleging. And so now this lawsuit is metastasizing into something much larger, because now it includes a pretty important word: fraud.
Yes, that's the updated thing, is that she's now alleging that it was not alleged. It was initially alleged just you denied me work, you promised me work, you reneged on the contract, and I lost other work, so these are my damages. Now she's alleging actual fraud. She's remanded. She's updated her complaint to fraud, as in you knew there was no show at the time you offered me a job. That's why you couldn't give me the job, because the show wasn't greenlit, which is what I've been claiming on my Patreon for several years, too much resistance by the external world. And now here she is claiming that based on her discovery that the show had not been greenlit when she had been given this job.
Right. This is what I look for. This is evidence in reality that something that, maybe the trades or, the mainstream media or something might be telling you that isn't true. This is evidence that, this person felt strong enough to sue, and B, they're now alleging fraud. So this could be some pretty important stuff. This is yet another layer coming in to Disney. Now, who is the legal team representing Karen McCarthy? Cameron, do you know who that is?
Yes. Let me give you their names. Give me a second. I want to give you the proper name of the firm. So hold on a second. I'll be back.
Okay. We have a little treat as part of this segment of the stream that I'll bring up here in a second. And anyone else have comments on this? Was anyone else following the story, the Karen McCarthy story? Heath, Retro, Lorena?
I was not. I'm sorry.
I was, because I'd been on several shows, so this was kind of the this is interesting. Let's see what happens with it.
Yeah. So here, this is yet another. And by the way, notice that Lucasfilm is involved in both of these. So Disney's lawyers are having to deal with this, right? Lucasfilm is like one corner of the fortress, and the outer walls are manned by Walt Disney World. And so you've got Gina Carano let go of by Lucasfilm and what appears to be or could be underhanded behavior, corporate behavior. And here, this is Karen McCarthy with the Acolyte. So both of these are linked to Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm is causing these problems.
Yeah. So her attorney is Robert Edward Allen at Glazer Weil, which is one of the top law firms in Los Angeles. They have they're based in Century City, and I have been to their offices and I've met with Mr. Allen personally. And, there we are with him. In
There we are.
Anyone who still denies that this event ever happened. I mean, it is what it is. There's the photo of me. Maybe I photoshopped this photo, and I'm crazy enough that I'll put that out there in public for Allen to contradict it. But whatever. That's yes.
Right.
So
that being unlikely. So that's Cameron with the lawyer who represents Karen McCarthy. This isn't just pure conjecture coming from left field. Cameron works in the industry and
yeah, I'm a former lawyer. I mean, I let my license expire many years ago, but I'm a former lawyer, and so that's why we were able to have a little bit of a compadre talk as someone who at least came from the field as well once. So.
Right. Well, and I've listened, totally separate in a completely different spectrum, but I've had to deal with legal teams before in my day job. And, what lawyers do and how they think is completely different from the layperson. They have a structure, an exactness to the language, very specific ways to approach an idea or a problem. Whereas like someone like me or you or Retro, we could throw out ideas all day long and even make a reasonable argument. That doesn't always hold up in a legal case. So,
that's contrary. That's exactly contrary to every lawyer I have ever had on one of my YouTube channels, because they are very flexible. They're like, oh, well, we don't know. This hasn't been tested. We haven't been to court on this. We don't really know. So in my experience, the lawyers are, if you go to a lawyer for some advice, they don't really give you quality advice.
Well, but that's
well, it depends on the quality of the lawyer. It depends on the quality of the lawyer. Like someone, Mr. Robert Allen.
Well, this or this, but that actually hasn't been tested in court, so we don't know. We're just going by this. Yeah, that's
but lawyers are told to hedge. We're taught to hedge and to give probabilities and possibilities because because you can't control outcomes. You can't control, even if that's the case law. Roe v. Wade was the case law in the United States for 40 years until it no longer was, right?
Yeah.
So things change.
Well, yeah, and like Cameron's saying, even lawyers speaking in terms like that is still a strategy, to present uncertainties or doubts or that this is not concrete. That's still breaking down one argument or another. So
yeah, and ambiguity, strategic ambiguity to protect a client is very critical to lawyers. Yeah. For example, if you were to call Mr. Robert Edward Allen, random person, and say, did you talk to Kamran Pasha and give him information for his Patreon about your client? And he has no idea who you are, what your agenda is. What is this lawyer going to say? They're going to say, I think I spoke with somebody. I don't know who that is. Thanks for calling. Click. That is what you do because you don't know who has sent this person, what their agenda is, and how it could hurt your client's legal case if you speak to them, right? Yeah. And so that is what you do. And so
you would deny. You should deny. I mean, a denial as a basic principle. You don't have to offer. No one's owed information. You don't have to present information. I remember people in totally different circumstances coming to me and demanding information. It's like, dude, I don't have to tell you anything. So the general policy is, I don't have to tell you anything, and you don't. You're nobody for me to have to divulge anything either. So
no answer is the correct answer for lawyers, and people who are not lawyers often don't understand that.
Right. So here we are. We're just getting started here in the fall of the empire. And here we have two escalations of two existing lawsuits or problems that Lucasfilm created that are now advancing to they move the cannons up, so to say. They're getting close to the walls of Constantinople now. So, these could be bigger problems as you go. So that's what's going on from the outside world coming in terms of Lucasfilm. Now, that said, Lucasfilm is still a company and they are still producing content. And here in early 2024, they do create a show. It's an animated show. And this is, I would say, a little bit more on the low end of the spectrum in terms of fan interest. However, I am a fan of this show. This is the Bad Batch. This comes from the tradition of the Clone Wars, the animated series, The Clone Wars, huge fan. They spun off a small subplot from the Clone Wars called The Bad Batch and created an entire show off of it. And here, this is kind of amazing, but we're on our 3rd season in 2024. Season 3 of The Bad Batch, which I've watched it. I've watched every episode, and I like it. It's not extraordinary, but it is solid. It is solid entertainment and very satisfying, and they did have some cliffhangers in this. And I think it's very good storytelling on The Bad Batch. Did anybody else watch The Bad Batch, or am I the one part of the pie chart that watched it?
I never saw it.
I saw one episode and it was okay, but it didn't appeal to me personally, but it looked okay.
All right. Yeah. Well, and from what I have understood, and Lorena, maybe you can tell me, the animation style sometimes turns people off.
It does.
Yeah, it can. There's so many different animation styles that are out there, and sometimes if it's a little too strange, people don't really latch onto it as other animation mediums that are well known. So that may have hurt it somewhat, I think, because it was different.
Yeah. Well, just for what it's worth, it's a good show. The Bad Batch is very fun, and I do encourage people to check it out. If you're these are like 22-minute episodes. It's very easy to digest. If you're looking for just a little bit of Star Wars, this might be a good show. This is one of the few things, one of a couple things that I do like from this era of Lucasfilm.
I did watch it.
Oh, you did?
But not all of it. I did watch quite a few episodes. It didn't latch onto me as much as I wanted it to. I believe I was talking to a couple of guys who were really big into it. So if you were one of those people who loved Clone Wars and that kind of art style, and you watched all that stuff, you probably would be into The Bad Batch, because this is a spin-off of was it Rebels?
Well, this is actually by the way, the Clone Wars animated series started way back in 2008, and it was launched by a feature film which completely bombed. It was terrible. I saw it. My two friends went to see it. They fell asleep in the theater. Like, it was bad. But the show itself started all the way back in 2008. That's back when Iron Man, Jon Favreau's Iron Man started back then. So the Clone Wars oddly has had a lifespan that has continued and persisted. And this, by the way, is one of the more recent entries, which I still like. And there are others, and we'll talk about those later on in this stream. There is another. We have yet another little golden egg, I think, from the animated side of Lucasfilm from the Clone Wars era. So, but we don't have to belabor The Bad Batch. It's a good show. It came out early.
A lot of people loved it. A lot of people loved it that were into those old animation shows, and it had a decent story. It just didn't really attract me personally, but it was still pretty well received, and I believe they didn't spend a whole lot of money on it.
$15 million.
It wasn't a big, and that's how a lot of their projects, I think, should have been smaller costs, and just for those experiments and small things like this. Right,
I agree. So that's the little bright spot, you could say, a quiet little sound, but a bright, a little bit of a bright spot there. More problems for the Empire here. Remember this whole situation, the Peltz proxy war? So we ended last stream talking about how Peltz threatened a proxy war and then backed off. And then in late 2023, November of 2023, he's like, it's on. We're doing this. He felt that Iger had not fulfilled his promise to make changes within the company, major structural, cultural changes. And so Peltz is back. And this time it's going to turn into a proxy war, and the war begins. And I remember being kind of excited about this because I was like, maybe this will lead to some real positive change. And I heard everyone out there talking like, just because Peltz takes over doesn't even mean, or just because he gets board seats, because that's all he was asking for, doesn't mean that there's going to be this widespread change. And it doesn't mean that, even stories that lack messaging are going to be great, you know, and there are plenty of stories that don't have any messaging and they're still not that great, you know. So anyway, this is heating up. One thing that happened during this time that bothered me in March of 2024, unexpectedly, in my opinion, George Lucas makes a stand. He makes a statement in this proxy war. He comes out in favor of Bob Iger, which I think shocked not only myself, but just about all of us.
Yeah.
This is something that I had started looking into, especially with the proxy war. Full disclosure, I own a couple of shares of Disney stock. I'm not like BlackRock or Vanguard or anything, but you know, I do own stock. And I'd never heard George Lucas like coming out and saying something like that. Another thing also about the proxy war, I've never seen Disney put so many people in the forefront explaining how great Disney is of a country, of a corporation, and you know, Bob Iger is doing great. We need his leadership through these, so much so that they put up a separate website to try to inform some of us, you know, plebeians down here how to vote for the upcoming shareholders meeting. So when this statement came out, I had to read it. And I'm like, this does not sound like George Lucas. It sounds like a PR statement. And I'm like, something doesn't sound quite right. And then I looked into his wife, of course, who was Melody Hobson, who has ties to, I think it was JP Morgan or something. It's JP Morgan or one of the top hedge funds that are invested in Disney. So my theory was, and a couple of other people agreed as well, that I do not think George really wrote that statement. I think Melody might have written it for him and put it out there because it's just like, look, I gotta work with, you know, Iger and the rest of them. Play nice, George. So,
well, you know, I agree with you. I was kind of stunned by this, and I was like, man, there's no way. And I was almost waiting for maybe a counter message to come out in the trades a day or two later, and I was like, George Lucas never came down and denied that. He never came out and denied this. And I remember I was even talking to my dad. I was like, you know what? As far as all this goes, he backed Iger, and at that point, George Lucas, I feel like, sided with the wrong side, you know. And I was like, now he owns it. He owns all that happened to Lucasfilm after he sold it. You know, after being so contemptuous about where it was going, the things he called Disney, his recorded statements in where he wasn't happy with Disney and the. So this was like a kick in the gut when I read it. So I was like, George Lucas on the side of the people that destroyed his vision. Like, how could this be? So Lorena, I think very similar to what you're saying. It's just that in the end, there was no recant of this backing, and ultimately they got the effect they wanted. George Lucas is with Iger. Cameron, did you have any thoughts on this when this came out, when this news broke?
Yeah, in fact, I wrote, it was on March 19, 2024. I wrote a post on my Patreon talking about this, and I had these were speculations. So I'm gonna actually quote what I speculated at the time. You know, this is because like all of you, I was surprised by it because it looked like here we have a chance to finally at least force Iger's hand to make some changes whether he likes it or not, right? So why would George Lucas, who by all accounts that I've heard is unhappy with what was done to his baby under the Iger-Kennedy regime, why would he not at least let that pressure be used? Why would he suffer with the power structure that had betrayed him? So I'm going to read what I wrote at the time, just a couple paragraphs. It's
go for it.
A minute. So I'm just writing this is quote what I said at the day. So quote, considering that Lucas publicly called Iger's Disney white slavers for their abuse and mismanagement of Star Wars, the question naturally arises as to why he appears to have had a change of heart now. And I said the simplest answer may be true. Lucas examined the proposal of the different contenders and likely spoke directly with Iger and Peltz about their respective plans for the company, and he decided the current board is the better bet. That would indeed be a simple, straightforward answer.
Right.
Now, but here's what I say. I want to say, but in Hollywood, The simple, straightforward answer is very often false. As I have often said on my Patreon, the key to examining public announcements in this industry is timing. Before we started recording, I mentioned that the two things that I always tell people are why now and cui bono, who benefits, right? So we can ask those questions here. So timing. So now continuing my report, I said George Lucas, at the time of this report, which is in April of 2024, has had months to consider his options. Why now, only 2 weeks before the proxy vote on April 3rd, 2024?
Yep.
George speaking up, have there been any developments behind the scenes to compel this action at this time? So this is what now I start going to what my sources were telling me back then, which would then be supported almost a year later. I wrote this in March of 2024. I said 2 weeks ago, on March 6, 2024, my Patreon reported that Kathleen Kennedy had reached an agreement with Bob Iger to begin her exit, right? And so as time would go on, as you know, earlier this year, we had reports in 3 of the trades, Puck, Hollywood Reporter, and Variety, that she had indeed reached that agreement and that it had been solidified in the fall of last year. So a few months after I reported here that the arrangement had been finalized. And she would later deny that on Deadline or semi-deny it while saying she didn't quite deny it. But, she used word salad to suggest that she's going to leave on her own terms probably this year, right? So whatever. But so I reported this in March 2024 that those talks had been moving forward. So then I asked in my Patreon, I said, could it be that George's statement in support of Iger is connected with that arrangement? The timing certainly suggests so. The other thing I've said on my Patreon that people need to analyze in Hollywood announcements is the language that is used. We had Lorena talk about language. The language was strange, but now I'll comment on the language. And look at the language Lucas utilized in his statement. Quote, creating magic is not for amateurs, end quote. That's an actual quote. That's not like the kind of thing you would expect someone to say in a professional proxy conversation. Creating magic is not for amateurs. So I go on to say, of all the people involved in this sordid drama, who would George Lucas really be talking about here? Who is the amateur that has ruined the magic of his baby Lucasfilm, poisoning not only his firstborn child Star Wars, but his beloved Indiana Jones and Willow? Kathleen Kennedy. So this is where I speculate. So I'm going to speculate here based on the timing of George's announcement and his very specific language that his decision to back the Disney board is directly related to Iger agreeing to remove Kathleen Kennedy and end George's personal nightmare. That's my instinct based on how this industry uses PR to achieve objectives beyond surface appearances. And I've said that in March 2024, and certainly we've had interesting dramatic events in the last year that suggest at least there's some effort to remove Kennedy and some succession plan has been put in place, right? And so it's certainly, I always try to who benefits, cui bono, who benefits here for George to back Iger? Well, if Iger's like, look, I've come to an arrangement to get this person out of here to stop messing up your baby, can you get on my side? Because if Peltz comes in and ruins all of that, I can't guarantee that the next board will support my arrangement, right? I can't control that. I can control this current board, and I've gotten to a handshake with her. Do you really want to mess that up, George? That was my speculation.
Well, and I'll say this too, being sensitive to, I'm a writer, so I'm sensitive to language as well. Creating magic is a nod to Walt Disney World. It's not talking about Lucasfilm. Oh,
nice. Yes, very
nice. So to me, I believe that George had a better relationship or a better trust with Iger. And I'm sure Iger said, my hands are tied. It's Kathleen Kennedy. I can't fire her. So I believe that he was basically saying he supports Disney. That doesn't say he supports Lucasfilm or the direction Lucasfilm goes in. Now, that's easily conflated and the message could be lost as Lucas supports Kennedy's vision. I do not believe that. That for 1 minute that he supports Kennedy's vision. But to me, creating magic is a nod toward Walt Disney World.
I'm just trying to understand and parse language here. But definitely my view remains that there was some benefit. There had to have been some benefit to Lucas for him to do this. Because, I don't know what the benefit would have been, had he not done this. I think, it would have jostled the board. And sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. And there is wisdom to that on some level, especially if you're playing chess in the power game that, at least you can rely on this person on this one level. Whereas, person number two, who knows, they're a complete wild card or they're outright against you. Heath, did you have a strong reaction to this? Where were you when Lucas came out on the side of Disney?
I'm a bad person to ask this because I don't remember all of this. As I'm reliving it with all of you, it's like, okay, so why would he go with? I didn't see it as endorsing Kennedy, and I think that's all that I thought at the time as I saw these headlines pass by.
Well, I have I'm going to get to one thing, and then I'm going to get to the next, which supports something that Kamran just said. But the next event is the result of this proxy war. Okay. Disney wins, and they win readily. And full disclosure, just like Lorena, at the time, I don't anymore, but at the time I owned stock in Disney and I voted in this. So, I remember it was kind of exciting because I had an opinion. I was following all of this. And then of course you get the notification, hey, we want your vote. And by the way, for those who don't know how it works, if you're ever in a proxy vote, they will tell you what you're voting on specifically, this item 1, item 2, item 3, and then they'll tell you right underneath it, the board suggests you vote for or against this. So they tell you the way they want you to vote. So if you're not heavily staked in this, you might be like, oh, the board says do this, the board says do that. So the board has you could say an incumbent style advantage there. At the time I was like, well, I'm just going to vote against whatever the board says. It made it easy for me to think. But at the end of the day, when all the dust settled, Disney wins this proxy war and they won it rather readily. It wasn't much of a contest when all was said and done. And so, the rest of us are like, so that's it. Nelson Peltz is out. His attack, his sortie, he charged the front lines. He got mowed down. That's it. Disney holds. Now, you can win battles and lose the war, and this was certainly a won battle by Disney, and it showed that there was still some support for the board, at least on this one basic level.
Can I add something
please.
to that? Because there, again, like I said before, there are two types of shareholders that you have when it comes to stock. You've got, civilians or, normies like me who have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 copies of, stock. We may have bought it ourselves. It may have been gifted to us as a birthday present. And that's how we have stock. Then you have, there's 3 hedge fund managers who manage millions of dollars in stock, and they're given the authority to vote on that stock because they're managing the hedge fund. Then you have the big top tier institutional investors, the folks that Iger goes presumably golfing with. You have Vanguard, you have BlackRock, and it is in the likes of Vanguard and BlackRock's interest to keep Bob Iger where he is and keep the board where he is. So this title is a bit disingenuous, but if you remember, like Kamran tells us all the time, Hollywood Reporter is very, very favorable towards Bob Iger. So they make this seem as if it's a blowout win for him. But the only reason that it's a blowout is because his buddies and the larger shareholders are the ones that voted.
Yeah, those larger blocks, they have quite a big say. I think 30% when all is said and done. So they can swing pretty big. And I remember there was a big effort at the time to get some of these to get a coalition of slightly minor groups to form something equivalent to like a BlackRock and try to vote against them. But at the end of the day, it did not hold up. And the board holds the line in this great battle. But now we're seeing, there's barbarians at the gate if you're Disney World, right? They're coming for, you're having to now ward off wave after wave of this stuff. Now, so Disney wins, Peltz is gone. That's over. That's not coming back anytime soon. So what happens next? Now, Kamran speculated earlier that this decision, George Lucas deciding to side with whoops, I'm supposed to be removing these. George Lucas siding with Iger may have been connected to events a couple of weeks prior to his announcement that may be linked to a possible departure plan for Kathleen Kennedy. I think most of us believe that Lucas is to put nicely, not a fan of Kennedy and would like to see her go. I think that Kennedy is most directly responsible for changing Star Wars into something that's very much an antithesis of his vision. So what happens next? You know, Iger endorses, Lucas endorses Disney. Disney wins the proxy war. And in April, the same month that Disney wins the proxy war, Star Wars filmmaker Kathleen Kennedy sells her Malibu house to a prominent video game exec. I don't even know who that was, but $12.7 million, her and Frank Marshall. So immediately, as a result, and by the way, I do write about political battle. I write about the Byzantine Empire. The word Byzantine is famously associated with very complex machinations behind the scenes. And a lot of times you will see which pawns were traded in the aftermath of a result that, like the Cuban Missile Crisis. They bargain through back channels, and then 6 months later, the Jupiter missiles are pulled out of Turkey, right? So here we have it right after the dust settles. Kathleen Kennedy sells her house. This is a big deal to me. You don't leave Hollywood, if you're staying, right? So
yeah, especially that house, because that house is the kind of house, beautiful Malibu beach, looking up at the hills, down at the ocean. The kind of house where you hold meetings and parties with famous people. You don't give that up. That is the proof that you've made it in this town, because Tom Hanks comes to your parties there. Why would you give that up if you're staying in Los Angeles? I mean, even if you're moving to the UK, you keep that there as a base of operations, as your solid power base in Hollywood. Again, timing, as you notice, it's interesting.
Heath, were you up on this one when Kathleen sold the house?
Yes, and I remember following Cameron's commentary on this as well when this came up. That we thought this was the big one. I remember everyone thinking that this was the big one, that she has sold her house, so now she's out, she's going. That's what I remember from this.
Yeah, well, she's selling her house, guy. So in my day job, I deal in real estate, and people don't just leave for no reason. And by the way, if you, I guess in my mind, if you live in Hollywood, Kathleen Kennedy's Hollywood royalty, her dossier, her entire CV, whatever you want to call it, is incredible. Possibly almost impeccable in terms of where she came from in the 70s through the 80s and 90s, the projects she was involved in, her proximity to power, Spielberg and Lucas and a lot of the greats. She doesn't. Where else does someone like her go? Idaho? You're where you should be. This is it. You're at the end game. This is exactly where you should be. You should retire and live right there in Hollywood. And here she's selling her house. So to me, regardless of how this plays out, that signals something. That's certainly not a non-issue. This is a major issue, because everything inside that house, the millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment, memorabilia, furniture, all that's got to be packed up. All of this stuff's got to go, and she's going to have to go somewhere else. And if it's not, and she's not moving down the street in LA, she's going somewhere else. So to me, this is a big deal, and I do think this might have been connected in some way to the results of that proxy war. Retro, did you have any thoughts on this? Where were you with this part? Was this drama that you were following, or were you a little bit hands off on this?
I did follow it a little bit, but I came to the conclusion I didn't care.
Oh, okay.
But it was also because I was kind of fed up with I knew what it suggested, but I wanted to see the actual thing that it meant instead of just this. She sells her home. That's great. Can you move on to your next career choice? Because right now you're not really doing a great job with Lucasfilm.
Well, it certainly suggests a life change, something changing in one's life. It's certainly suggestive of that. Whether or not, I'm just going to stand by what I think. I do think that the end of 2025 is going to be the end of her era here. That's why we're doing these talks. But this definitely signals something, and I think it signals the next chapter for Kathleen Kennedy, for sure. So, if people try to get to Hollywood, they don't try to leave necessarily unless they're either done or ready to move on. So anyway, getting back to the production side, it's funny when we first started these talks, it was production, right? It's this show, it's that movie. Now we're getting into all of this other stuff that's hampering. All of the other culture war stuff is coming to roost, this being part of it. But we do have another show. And again, on the production side, this one's rather small. And let me tell you, this is going to be our nice little deep breath before the storm. Because the Acolyte's coming up. We got that coming up soon. But before then, let's see, May 4th, so Star Wars Day, May 4th, 2024, we do have a show that comes out. And again, it's in the tradition of the animated series. It's called Tales of the Empire, which, by the way, so I told you had the Clone Wars, which spun off into Bad Batch, which also had Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire, and as we'll find out soon, Tales of the Underworld, which is part of this sort of trilogy, this body of work. And I liked it. Tales of the Empire is good. Tales of the Jedi was good.
I liked it
Retro,
too.
what did you think?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. It was like it wasn't the best thing ever. It's not gonna rock the world, but I thought it was. Again, we're dealing with like shorter stories that are more something you can handle within a reasonable amount of time. The pacing was decent. And I thought it was good storytelling. Wasn't really super expensive, so a couple of people could catch it that were still interested in Star Wars, and the people who didn't see it, it was not going to crush them because they didn't spend so much money on it. And so I loved it. It was a nice little two stories about people who were on the on the bad side of the tale, I guess you would say, or evil, or the dark side. Yeah, the dark side. And it was interesting. It wasn't. It didn't seem to break any lore, but more fill in what lore there was. So I liked it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I liked it for that. I think I've said about
it's like Star Wars Light. It's a small dose. It's safe. It doesn't do anything crazy. I liked it. It was good. Well, how many times will I go back to rewatch it? Maybe never, but it was good for one time through, and it was enjoyable. So this was at least something that was decent. Again, in this animated Star Wars tradition. However, this small minor issue is about to be eclipsed by we talked about some of the news, and Lorena, this is going to be right up your alley.
Okay.
We talked about the closure of the Galactic Star Cruiser. Okay. And what is crazy is a YouTuber comes out and makes what is now a rather infamous video. Take a look at it. 12 million views when I grab this screenshot. This is a 4-hour plus video. And yes, I watched every minute of it.
Me too.
She doesn't seem to be particular. She doesn't seem to hate Lucasfilm. She doesn't seem to have any particular animosity toward anyone. She is a Star Wars fan. So she seemed to be a rather neutral take. And she loves her LARPing experiences. She loves her theme parks. So she goes on there and she pretty much gives us all the goods in her experience in the Galactic Star Cruiser. Lorena, I mean, you had to have been perked up when this came out.
Yes, and I'm gonna say, well, yes and yes. I was gonna say yes and no, but yes and yes. I don't know if Jenny Nicholson was among the group of people who got to experience the Galactic Star Cruiser without paying for it. It's kind of gratis influencers and all those folks to go and experience the Galactic Star Cruise. So I don't know if she paid her own way or if she was
She paid her
just
own way.
invited. She did. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
yeah, because
Okay.
I didn't want to assume one way or the other. That's actually better because I trust people more who paid their own money to go on the Galactic Star Cruiser. To back
Right.
up a little bit, the Star Wars Hotel, and I'm glad she put that in there. There was supposed to be a Star Wars hotel. We saw the concept art. It was going to be right there, and you could walk right into Galaxy's Edge. It was going to be like a Star Wars convention 24/7, and
Should have
that's
been
what I was
cool.
excited about. It would have been cool, with the rooms and everything. Exactly. It's like it's going to be great. Star Wars, I can go to Galaxy's Edge, come back to the hotel, be completely immersed. Well, they nuked that plan and came up with basically a cruise for not even 2.5 days, starting at $5,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is
Pricey.
$5,000, a price point that is way out of the range of, I would say, 80% of the people who would be visiting Walt Disney World. It was not only was an exorbitant amount of money, but when people started seeing what was offered, it's like the value is like not there, and people were like, this is ridiculous. And I've seen people who were on the Galactic Star Cruiser, when it first came out, it was great. It was a lot of hype. You could see who these people were. But after a couple of months, you hardly saw anybody from the Galactic Star Cruiser going into Batu. So I was
This
not
was
surprised.
Yeah, I mean,
failed.
a disaster. A disaster. A $1 billion investment, right, by Disney in favor of Lucasfilm. And this should have been a can't miss. Like I said, I remember going to the theme parks and my son was allowed to participate. They asked him if he wanted to participate in this Jedi training program. This must have been back like 2017, 2018. And he got to participate. He got to fight Darth Vader on stage with the Imperial March playing and sound effects. And I was like, oh my God, how for free? And nothing that I saw in her video that I would have had to have paid $5,000 ahead for would have came even remotely close to that free experience in the park. So to me, it showed some massive disconnect between the creative. What did they think people wanted? Do you know how to service these people? Do you know how to entertain and make people? Do you know what to do with this?
I think what happened, actually, I know what happened. Originally, Galaxy's Edge was supposed to be based on the original trilogy.
Right.
There's an interview out there, I think, with one of the former VPs at Disney, who basically said they were going to make it all original trilogy. But guess what? They got a call from Kathleen Kennedy saying, you know what? Do you want to base it on the old stuff that 50-year-old white guys are gonna want, or should you base it on the future? So that's what they did and made it with the sequel trilogy. And another one of the reasons that the Galactic Star Cruiser failed is because it did not cater to the core base of Star Wars. If you would have had, quote unquote, my dinner with Vader, I know people who would shell out, just shut up and take my money. I want to have, I want to have this experience, when you're on Bespin, they open the door and boom, there's, Darth Vader. We would be honored if you would join us.
I mean, I just have the image in my mind of just in there, and Boba Fett comes out from behind his chair. I mean, it would be perfect, right?
Those kind of recreating those kind of experiences down to Jawa's trying to hustle you, sell you like a bum astromech droid or something, something like that. But because they did not cater to that audience, because they wanted to make their own thing for a sequel trilogy that was divisive from the fandom, but it wasn't a value experience. It wasn't something that made you re-experience the film. So my feelings aside, as being an OG Star Wars fan, even with the sequel trilogy, there weren't enough true ties to the sequel trilogy. You weren't reliving certain moments. And when people pay money for these types of experiences, those are scenes they want to re-experience. And they didn't do this here. It was basically an all-day LARP for 2.5 days. And if you're somebody like me who's type A, when I'm on vacation, I do not want to be bothered.
Yeah,
I
man.
do not want to do, in anybody's, dinner theater or anything like that. I just want to go and do my own thing. And that's not what this was. And
Yeah, this felt almost
so
like it
flat.
was controlled for you, like
It
a
was.
controlled
Yeah.
vacation.
Tightly scripted down to 15 minutes. If you saw the schedule that they put out, it was literally like from 15 minutes here to like 25 minutes here. And everything was scheduled out. There was maybe like an hour or two of free time, but it was like you're constantly going.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard there was like some Willy Wonka thing out in Great Britain. Some like
Oh yeah.
this was like a $1 billion version of that, where people showed up and they're just like, oh boy, I don't know. And I told you I watched a video, some guy buying the $5,000 drink, and I just felt
drink.
There's no way he felt that was worth it, even for the love or even for the likes and clicks on social media. That's not worth it. There's no way that's worth it. So this seemed more like a scam. I remember hearing the tales where they would put people in box trucks and drive them over, So
yes, the US bus. That's what we called it. They go in a little box truck and drive them over to Galaxy's Edge, and then they disembark in this like area. It blew my mind that that's what they were going to do.
This was a bust, and to me, it was tough as a fan, just because I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm watching these people willingly fail, like deliberately, willingly fail. They're doing things that are guaranteed to fail, and I'm watching them do it. I'm watching it come together, and then of course it fails, and it's like, how come they can't see that this is not going to be successful? How detached are they?
I actually know cosplayers that can do much better costumes than this. I've watched fan movies that look better than the visuals that you see on the videos that were took for this particular project. Right. And it is astounding how it looks interesting, and I was like, oh, that's cool. It looks more Star Trek than Star Wars. They didn't get it right. It's sci-fi, but it's not Star Wars.
Star Wars is supposed to be, a den, a den of scum and villainy, not your, Star Trek
for the rich of the galaxy. Like, what is going on here? This is like for the uber rich of the galaxy. This isn't. One thing I would say about Star Wars, and really what set it apart from all the other science fiction movies, is that Star Wars was always everything was weathered. Everything looked old.
Yes.
Used. And you get this place, it's brand new, it's sparkling, and it just lost, it doesn't have the edge and the grit and the reality that you are looking for experience like that. There's a cantina in California that looks so, they really know Star Wars. They should have taken some advice from that cantina. It's like, you can't, this was horrible to just look at, like the advertisements that they showed of the food and everything. It's like,
blue shrimp.
You guys are missing the mark. Yeah,
well, this smacked a little bit of trying to deliver some sort of a luxury experience, which I think, like what you're saying, Retro, Star Wars isn't a luxury experience. I bet if you did a poll with 20,000, 40,000 Star Wars fans, would you rather spend, 6 nights or 2 nights in Coruscant in the heights of the Jedi Order, or would you rather be in, Mos Eisley? We want the dive bar.
Yeah,
right? That's Star Wars. So,
I'm still pissed we did not get that bar. The crux of Star Wars for a Star Wars fan is being
Yeah.
able to relive walking into the Mos Eisley Cantina
I know,
and
with that
seeing all
music.
of those aliens.
because I don't think Miss Kennedy is aware that there was a Mos Eisley, cantina. I don't
Get it.
What?
She did
think
say
she
They,
ever
they
said
don't
those-
understand the nostalgia of Star Wars. They don't understand the legacy because and preserving the worth of preserving that legacy. They don't care. They don't understand. They think it's just an IP to start producing new characters and figures to sell. They don't understand that people love the original movies because it's part of a legacy. Their parents saw it, made the kids see it, and made their kids see it. Everybody has seen the first Star Wars, at least,
Well, there was such a long time that Disney, the Imagineers, the thinkers at Disney mostly got it right when it came to their customers and fan base. I remember they would deliver.
Yeah, they used
And now
to.
they're stuck in an era, and this is one of the greatest examples of the exact opposite. They don't know their customers. They don't know how to deliver, and in fact, they spend big bucks to fail. And so, just to move on, I know we only have Cameron for a little while.
Sadly, I have to start moving out. So I know you're about to move on to the topic that is dear. It's dear to all of us, the Acolyte. Since I can't stay here, unfortunately, because I have to get ready I have a dinner to get ready for. So let me just add a few thoughts that maybe we can all talk about. So one is, I predicted for a long time the show would never get made. I was wrong.
Correct.
Obviously got made. We talked last week about some of the politics involved in her announcing the Acolyte and pressuring forces within Disney to get it done, and the financing sources still remain questionable. And we talked about that for those who want to watch the previous episode, which has been affirmed yet again by the Karen McCarthy lawsuit, where she's now claiming in her updated lawsuit, amended lawsuit, that there was fraud involved in this process of this show. She's claiming it, that there was no greenlit show under the days of Bob Chapek when it was announced, and that she had been brought under false pretenses. At the time, I had theorized that she was being brought in to make it look real to Chapek and others, saying, "What do you mean there's no? What do you mean you're not going to give us the budget? We've already hired this person." So, again, a done deal. We've announced it in the press. We've announced actors, and we've hired a line producer. What do you mean you're not going to give us the money? And apparently he resisted enough to not give them the money, so that they ended up feeling embarrassed enough to have to let her go because they couldn't pay her, right? And then later, now, a couple of years later, she has found evidence from her discovery that they never had a green light when they offered her the job, which is what I claimed at the time. So yes, the show got on the air, but I'm also vindicated now that what the impossible thing that I claimed, that the show was not greenlit, because that sounds like crazy Cameron conspiracy theory, is now the central claim of Karen McCarthy's lawsuit, that she was offered a job on a show that had not been greenlit, whose budget had not been solidified, whose timing had not even been solidified, whether it was an hour-long show or half an hour-long show. That is her claim now. So, I think I never watched the show, so I have nothing more to say about it. But that's I will say, for those who are like, well, this guy obviously has no credibility. Well, the show got on the air, and what I claimed about it being fraudulent at the time that it was announced is now being supported by Karen McCarthy. So you got that.
Well, and let's say this show should not have been made. This
yes.
This show is really bad. And Cameron, before you leave, I'll at least put this up so you can see it. We were talking about Mandalorian season 3. We talked about what was the other show? Mandalorian season 3, and then there was, anyway, I'll just put it up here. Ahsoka season 1. And so this is the Nielsen ratings. Mm-hmm. You could see episode 1, Mando, the upper 8s, 1,000. These are solid numbers. This is ranking high. And we saw, and I put this up there without the Acolyte, Ahsoka, they lost half the audience. Mm-hmm. And I was telling everybody, I was like, Mandalorian season 3 is the last time LucasFilm, Disney touches such great heights as Mando season 3.
For a while, at least. Yes.
For a while.
In this time period we're discussing, yes.
Right. It could come back, but at this point where we're going to bookend this, it has been struggling. So Ahsoka, they lost half the audience from Mando season 3. And look at the Acolyte. With 2 episodes, they got half of the audience that they got with 2 episodes with Ahsoka. And by the 4th episode, which was week 3, it did not place. And I did not place it. It scored less than 298. Look over here at Mando. The worst the worst week was 795. You know, the worst of Ahsoka was 459. The Acolyte was getting less than 298, less than 319. These are
that's bad by UPN standards 20 years ago.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, so you see the trend. These are shows. Now, they spent a lot of money on the Acolyte. They spent more on the Acolyte than Mando and Ahsoka combined. And this is the result. They lost the audience. Star Wars used to be an event. Star Wars used to bring people to the table and the water cooler. Now, people have other things they'd rather watch than your $300 million Star Wars show. So that says to me quite a lot. I kept track of all these numbers. You could see them there for yourself.
And it supports what I reported. When I later reported, so it looks like my source is saying, it looks like this thing is back on. We told you we thought it was off, but it looks like it's moving forward through political forces we don't understand ourselves, but it's moving forward. And I reported on my Patreon, okay, I guess it looks like I was wrong. It's going to move forward. I reported on my Patreon that Jon Favreau saw the original footage, and he said, this is going to destroy everything I've done.
Well,
this is going to be the worst fan. He said, this is the worst fan film I've ever seen.
Well, and Cameron's prediction, just as someone who is listening, I listened to a lot of different YouTubers, especially at the time. Cameron's prediction is based on his understanding of how the industry works. And he said, this show should not it'll never get made based on general logic. Well, this general logic was defied, and look at the results of the Acolyte. It should not have been made. You know, you defy conventional wisdom at your own risk in any industry. Hollywood, no different than any other industry. They defied that conventional wisdom, and they ended up with a destroyer. And by the way, I hate to say it, their next show performs even worse than the Acolyte
as a result of this damage. Because one of the rules of Hollywood is it doesn't matter what last night's ratings are. It matters what next week's ratings are. Because, you know, as we saw in episode 3 of Mando, people tuned in for episode 3. Something, I don't remember what episode that was, but they clearly disliked that episode enough that 320,000 didn't watch it the next week. So that's the term. What happens now will determine the future, which is what happened to Solo. I didn't go see Solo because I was upset about The Last Jedi, which a lot of people were as well. So bad stuff damages the next thing. And that was the proof of the Acolyte. And with that, my friends, I have to go. I'm late. So please, everyone, stick around here. There's more to this. And, you know, you'll have the fun of being able to talk about the madness of the Acolyte with this incredible panel. Some of whom I'm sure had the misfortune of actually watching it. I didn't bother. So thank you. And I'm honored that you had me on for these several weeks. Those who haven't watched them, go back and watch these previous episodes. This is an incredible compendium of the last decade that's been done on this panel. And I'm really proud to have been part of it. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Cameron. And I know you got to go, and we'll catch up.
And Lorena, I got your email. We'll be in touch on that. Take care. God bless everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, we've been really treated to Cameron and his insider insight and knowledge of the industry, and also his perspectives as a writer, as a professional. You know, I think he's added just so much to these conversations. Everyone's bringing something different into this panel, and I think it has been a very robust discussion. So anyway, just to get back to the Acolyte, everyone's favorite show, just out of curiosity, let's run through the panel here. Who watched every episode? Okay, Lorena. Lorena watched every episode. Did you, Retro?
I watched a lot of the episodes, not all of them.
Okay, I watched 3, and I could not get past it. I could not get past 3. Heath, did you watch any of these episodes?
I watched none of them. I watched Ahsoka because you were into Ahsoka. So that's the only reason that I did. I never watched Mando season 3. I probably would not have watched Ahsoka if it was not for you, Doug. But we went through Ahsoka, and also with you, Retro Nerd Girl. We went on that through that online. But then, I never watched Acolyte, not one episode.
So the Acolyte I think it was actually flawed by several reasons. It wasn't just one thing. I think we could put up a pie chart and say this hurt it, this hurt it, this hurt it, and this hurt it. Believe it or not, I don't think the diversity issue is what hurt Acolyte. I heard a lot of people complaining about it, but when I watched it, I was like, diversity is not the problem with this show. That is not why this show is failing. It's not because they did some sort of quota system and made a Star Wars film out of it. It was very poorly written, and I actually thought it was also very shockingly amateur in the way it was filmed. So, Lorena, I feel like since you've watched every episode, you are the most qualified person to talk about what went wrong here with the Acolyte. Do you want to lead us off? Do you want to get us started on this?
Yeah, sure. The Acolyte was something I was not looking forward to, but in order to be completely transparent, especially when talking about it on my channel, I went and watched it. Now, Jae Jung Lee, who you have on screen right now, he a lot of people know him from Squid Game, of course. So he's a very established actor. I am embarrassed that his talent was wasted in The Acolyte because I've never seen a Star Wars show that had such poor cinematography, abysmal writing, none of the characters that you really want to invest in. Well, I take that back. Lee Jung Jae's character, you did want to invest in because his interesting thing is English is his second language.
Yes.
Yet when he's acting, it's natural. It makes sense. For some reason, it makes sense. So most people who suffered through watching the show had nothing but high praise for Lee Jung Jae in this. Yeah, and it wasn't about, diversity. That's just a shield. And I tell people the whole thing with diversity was basically to distract you from the fact that Leslie Headland wrote a crap show. And that's exactly what this was. This was 100% a crap show. No tight show running, any of that. Like with Ahsoka, I had to watch Ahsoka because I love Rosario Dawson. So as cheesy and messed up as some parts of it was, I still liked watching it. Where it's like it's so bad, it's good. We're gonna watch it, and we're just gonna, MST3K it. But there were things to like that were in there, and cinematography was fine. Those things were fine. But this, it's like they put every amateur that they could on this show.
Yeah.
To create just I don't know who gave Leslie Headland the money because this was a freaking embarrassment. And also
bizarre.
with oh my gosh. Oh, was it Stevenson? Was he? No, wait. No, that was a different one. Sorry. Sorry, wrong Star Wars show.
Ahsoka.
Yes, I'm thinking
Ray
about
Stevenson.
Ray Stevenson was in that. But yeah, this was a slap in the face to everyone's intelligence. Star Wars fans and normie Star Wars fans.
So Lorena, and I'm going to come back to you because I'm really interested in your take on some of this since you've seen episodes I haven't. My attitude and judgment comes through 3 episodes. But Heath, will you speak for the fandom that did not tune in for this? Speak for them. Tell why did you not watch this? What was your attitude toward it? How did you feel? Why did you choose to just sit this one out?
Well, I mean, I never would have. I wouldn't have watched anything after Kenobi. I mean, I tuned out after Kenobi. Like, I didn't even watch all of Kenobi, so I turned off. The only reason that I came back to Ahsoka was because of you, Doug. We're like, okay, we need to talk about this because of the Heroine's Labyrinth aspect and all of that. And so this wasn't even on my radar. My brother did contact me and he was like, so who is the woman from the Matrix, right?
Carrie-Anne Moss.
Carrie-Anne Moss. Thank you.
Yeah.
Carrie-Anne Moss. So my brother did contact me. He was like, oh my God, Carrie-Anne Moss is going to be in a Star Wars show. Oh, did you know that? And I was like, no, I didn't know that. So, he and his wife were clued into this because, okay, Carrie-Anne Moss is going to be in Star Wars. So they were going to watch it for that reason. I hadn't even clued in on that. When I saw the trailers for this, I thought this was Order 66. I didn't even know this was a different time period. I mean, I wouldn't have watched it. I think I saw a trailer for it and I thought we were looking at Order 66. And we're actually in a completely different time period. So that wasn't even communicated to me as someone to watch this, that we're in a different time period. Completely lost on me from all of the advertising, the limited advertising that I saw. But okay, for someone like my brother and his wife, Carrie-Anne Moss is going to be in Star Wars, so they're going to watch.
Yeah, Trinity. I mean, she's one of the bigs, right? Trinity. I mean,
Yeah.
she lodged herself in the pantheon of beloved heroines in Western culture here. So and I got to say, if it wasn't so poorly written, she has gravitas. She looked good, just like the actor from Squid Game. What was his name, Lorena?
Lee Jung Jae.
Lee Jung Jae. This man had great presence in the show, and I couldn't help but think there was even one time I remember when I was watching episode 1, I was like, did everyone get it wrong? And this is actually a good show for about 8 seconds, and I was watching him act and be a Jedi Master. I was like, ooh, this guy's kind of cool. And then the rest of the show was taking place. I forgot what it was in particular that jarred me out of it, but it didn't last. And by the time the next minute log, I found myself starting to rack up a list of like, oh, why did they do that? What's that doing? I don't understand that. Why would they say that? Like, once that starts and the show can't backpedal out of it, you might have lost the viewer. And so I stuck with it for the 3 episodes that I did, but I thought he was great, and I actually thought Carrie Ann Moss had presence. I shouldn't say their performances were great, but it suggested that had they a good script, who knows what this could have been. This could have been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to get back to Lorena, but Retro, you said you also watched several episodes. How far did you get into The Acolyte?
Well, I'll say this. I know about all of the episodes. I kind of jumped in kind of late because I was going to skip this one altogether, based on some promotions that were done prior to watching the show. That articles from that Kathleen Kennedy had said that the male audience of Star Wars is does not like female-led projects, something to that effect. And I was like, what? And then there was also a couple of things to do with Leslie Headland that was out in the news, and it just didn't feel right. And so I was like, maybe I should skip this one so I could just stay out of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But then everyone kept saying, this is really like some weird stuff is going on here. I think a lot of the comments were kind of a little bit over the top, with, not really getting into this weird concept of a new kind of way to describe the Force and things like that. It was really not Star Warsy. Yeah, just so weird. So I do know about every episode. I watched at my discretion, and I think it was like around the episode, and there was I would say the last 3 episodes is where I really got a chance to watch it, and it was just so over the top crazy. I was like, this is not even just not Star Wars. This is really bad. And I liked it for the fact that it was bad, but I really felt like what a big mistake to spend $200 million on this experiment. This should have been 30 mil, and they should have just kept it very quiet and maybe have had less characters or less of a big expense to do this, instead of blowing all their money on, I don't know what. They had 10 writers, by the way. 10 writers, including Leslie Headland. So that's a lot of people involved. I remember an article, Leslie Headland hired one of the writers. She had absolutely no experience with Star Wars, and it was praised for that. That was the reason why she was hired, was because she didn't know anything about Star Wars. And I think it's on the effort of trying to deliver something new for Star Wars, something interesting, but without the lore and without the experience of loving the franchise, you don't understand what you could be destroying. So there was a lot of lore destroying in this project as well, which makes it really unfun for fans to watch something from a franchise they love so dearly, and to see like, okay, what we knew about that character from that is definitely not true, because here he is in front of us right now, and like, what is
Right.
he doing in this story? Like, and it made
What a
no sense
waste.
because he did nothing in the story. So why have him in the story anyway? Did you put him in the story because you know it was going to upset fans? Well, what's the, it's just
Well,
so crazy.
and his character in the so his character talks about the Sith that is in the show, and yet in the prequels in Phantom Menace, his character specifically says, it's almost mind-boggling. Out of all the characters you could have chose, his is the character that said, "We haven't seen the Sith in a millennia." So I mean, like, he's the one who says we've never seen the Sith, and so they're like, take that guy and let's cast him. So either it was maliciously done. They made such an egregious error. They found this guy and they put him out there to try to cover it up. But either way, my basic feeling toward this was that they don't like Star Wars.
They
The
don't.
people who made this show.
No.
And I
Yeah.
listened to the interviews because I was like, where's their heart in this? Like, where are they coming from? And she's like, yeah, I wanted to show that the Jedi are the bad guys. And I was like, well, you know, Phantom Menace showed that the Jedi are severely flawed, or especially Revenge of the Sith, which, by the way, comes out next week. I'm going to be taking my kids to the theater to see Revenge of the Sith. But Revenge of the Sith showed us the problems with the Jedi. They showed us the hubris. They showed us the overestimation. So to go, we're going to show the Jedi in a less flattering light. It's like, God, when do we get to see the Jedi in a flattering light? Because we never really did. I think
that would be nice.
What's that?
That would be nice. Sometime.
Right?
That would be
Yeah.
nice. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They make it seem like people revere the Jedi as though they're these like invincible, infallible beings. They've never been portrayed like that. When we saw Obi-Wan Kenobi, we liked him because he had this great hidden past and a secret wisdom. But he essentially was sitting out. When we found Yoda, he was in seclusion. He was essentially sitting it out. Then we go back to the prequels, and here's these Jedi in their heyday, but they're missing the rise of a Sith Lord. So to me, I don't need to see the Jedi. This is what lost me early on in the episode 1 and 2 is I've already seen the Jedi flawed. Now it's almost like she was trying to say that the Jedi are, in fact, evil, not flawed.
And incompetent. And I think, and you guys hit the nail right on the head. It seems like with this show, written by people who did not like Star Wars. There was an interview done with Leslie Headland, and someone asked her, said, "Oh, so you're writing a Star Wars show. What's your favorite movie?" Now, us normies, us regular
I
folks,
think we talked about this last week.
how long do you have? Let's say I like Empire, I like this one, I like this one. Well, maybe, okay, I like this one a little bit better. Or if you hadn't seen it, it's just like, I haven't seen them, but I'm looking forward to checking it out to see exactly which one that I like. Do you know what this woman said?
Tell me,
Is this
please.
Is this the all of them?
She said, I don't know, all of them?
Oh.
Yeah.
A true
was
Star
terrible.
Wars fan
That was
would
terrible.
never say that.
No
Never say that.
question about it.
Yeah.
No question about it. That's the answer you give when you're on the spot and you don't have an answer.
Yeah.
My favorite
That's
is
it.
actually every single one is my
Yeah.
favorite. And
That-
I remember seeing something where she
that's
said
so
like
much.
Star Wars saved her life, and it's like,
Mhm.
man, calm down. There's no way that's maybe it's true, but it sounded melodramatic at first pass from me. What were we going to say, Retro?
No, we covered a little bit of this last week. You remember we talked about it just gently because that is she was absolutely lying.
Yeah. Well, she said in an interview that she identifies with the Sith. She actually feels like she is a Sith. And so it tells me right there that there's some sort of moral confusion at best in terms of what's right and wrong as far as storytelling goes. As far as understanding what's right and wrong in storytelling, great storytelling usually says that right and wrong has limits, right? That there is some ambiguity there. Great stories are like, oof, I really like this, like The
Well,
Godfather. I really like this
okay.
character, but he's also killing people. You know,
Yeah,
why do I
well,
still like the character? That's putting you in a tough spot, right? So that's not what this did. This just said all these people you think are good, they're all doing terrible things, and there's no nuance, there's no subtlety to it, there's no real code that we're following, and there just happens to be bad guys. It reminds me of The Last Jedi, where Luke's position was the Jedi must go because how good are they? They let a Sith Lord rise to power.
yeah,
And I was like, that's a
wrong.
criticism. That's not a reason to disband the Jedi, because
Yeah.
what you're saying, the Jedi made a mistake, therefore they should be eradicated. Do you have any commentary about the Sith Lord that rose to power and started destroying planets? You know, at least the Jedi were going to oppose them. You know, so, you know, my problem is saying that the good guys are flawed isn't enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough to justify evil. And I feel like that's where some of these ideas are going.
Yeah, and you can see from, well, there were quite a few problems with the story. But the guy who just like mowed down one of the characters, like whole troop of friends, okay, ends up in a pool of water naked and walks right up to her. This is definitely not stuff for kids.
Right.
You
No.
gotta tell, you gotta get the kids, I'm sorry, you gotta get out of the room, or you gotta like shut that thing off, like, oops, sorry, something happened to the television there. Because it was just not for kids. But okay, that aside, we're gonna have these two characters, you know, the Sith people fall in love with each other. We're turning into sort of a Yandere kind of like story, you know, fan fiction, like that you would probably find on the black market out here somewhere in these like YouTube streets. It's not something that you would find in an actual production worth over $200 million from Star Wars. Like, I can't believe what I was watching. And even though I was into it, I was like, okay, this is kind of, you know, kind of sexy, kind of hot. That's not what I should be feeling when I'm looking at Star Wars. Okay, I should be into the story, not because I hope these two will be shipped, you know. And so
Right.
that was really the lowest blow, I think, especially for anyone who's like, you know, family oriented. You could always depend on Disney for that, and now you're getting this stuff.
Right.
That I haven't even covered the problems, the story structure issues that were in this particular production, where they had, oh, from this point of view, you see this particular set of things happen. But then at the very end, oh, well, you didn't see it in the right point of view. You should have seen this. And so they played over the same scene or the same episode twice. I believe it was episode 3 and episode 6. I'm not sure if it's I have that correct, but they had 2 different episodes for the same set of events. And it was very frustrating. Oh no, I think I'm finished with my rant, okay? My Acolyte rant. I was going there for a while there. Somebody had to stop
Rant
me.
over.
Yeah. So a weird thing, just from a writing point of view, you're taught, you know, and everyone makes this mistake. So it's forgivable when you're an amateur writer and you're learning and you're trying to figure it out. But, you know, you're not supposed to start a scene with, you know, so I'm writing about Byzantine Empress Theodora. You're not supposed to be like, and Theodora woke up. And that's your first line, because whatever she's doing that day is where you should start. Now, from a writing standpoint, you can get away with it once in a while. You know, the main character woke up and this is what they saw, right? But the overall consensus for good writing is to avoid the she woke up or he woke up part and get into the day. And so you notice if you watch movies, it's rare. Usually a wake up scene in a movie or a show is there's a noise in the middle of the night and the character wakes up. In episode 1, she starts scenes by waking up about 4 times. So it's a small thing. But from a writing standpoint, you're like, dude, why would they be making this amateur mistake repeatedly? Obviously, nobody told them you're not supposed to start scenes like this. And they did it 4 times. So that's a small thing. You probably never even heard anyone complain about that. But that was something that bothered me as a writer, that they didn't know to not start a scene with the character. And it was Amanda Stenberg, I think, every time. Waking up, you know, here's another scene. She's waking up. She's waking up. She's waking up. It's like, someone should intervene here on that amateur level and clean that up. So anyway, that was one small different take. You probably never heard about it, but it spoke to me about the amateurism involved in the show. So I will say I wasn't very impressed with her performance either. I mean, no ill will toward any actress or actor in the show. They're hired to do it, but her performance certainly didn't stand out for me either.
It was mostly the dialogue and editing that messed her up. I believe.
Well, most of the characters,
yeah, because the dialogue was just so hard to pull off as real dialogue, even for Star Wars. And now they did try to do something like they tried to talk like how Luke wrote the first movie, but even there, it just didn't seem to work well with the editing. And so there's many ways you can make an actor seem like they're doing a better read of their lines by editing it in a certain way, and that skill was not present.
Well, and here's another little tidbit from the writing world. So, and this is an important thing. These are all subtleties of writing that, you wonder what makes one writing sound really good and the other one not sound as good. It's because the one that sounds good is doing all of about 50 million little things all at once. So, for example, and this show suffered from this. Again, this is 101, maybe 102. Maybe this is one step up from 101. Character change versus character shift. This is something that is taught to writers. So a character change is, a character starts in one mental space, experiences some things, and then is confronted with a situation where they change their behavior, their pattern changes, and it's based on the experiences that lead up to it. So in scene one, Han Solo is a selfish, brash, solo act. He's in it for, I'm in it for the money. By the end, he's joining the rebellion on the attack on the Death Star. A character change has occurred. Why? He had characters contesting him. He began to get invested in Luke. He began to get invested in Leia. He cared about this. Chewie gave him the old Wookiee guilt trip. He's like, I know what I'm doing. So he went through a character change. That's good. That's good writing. The character starts here, changes their pattern of behavior late in the story because of all the experiences that led to that. Character shift is what you're told to avoid. A character shift, and this is what amateur writers do all the time. I'm guilty of it. That's how I learned this lesson so inherently. A character shift is where your character's like, I am going to do something different today. And so I'm going to rob a bank. I'm going to change it up, baby. So your character just does something different. And an amateur writer thinks that that's interesting. Like, oh man, what if this good character just decides to beat up this guy on the jogging trail today? That's going to really throw the audience. No, because it's completely unbelievable. And the character shifted their position unexpectedly versus things happening that caused them to change their position. Her character was written with multiple character shifts, undeniably so. She would just change sides seemingly at random, and I could tell from my own amateur writing mistakes. I know what they're doing. They think this is making her interesting. Oh, cool. Now she's with the Sith. Oh, cool. Now she's with the good guys. She's with the Jedi. That's not good. And you will lose your audience as a writer when you do that. And her character had severe character shifts like whiplash in the series. Another sign of amateurism that, to me, dogged this show.
Oh, yeah. I'll totally back that up with, if you do something like that, there has to be something that changes, something incredible that happens that changes there. Because we had no clue. She turned her back, and then she turned it around, and she was like, oh, I'm going to do things differently now. And it was so abrupt. I mean, it was one of those moments where you just go, okay, what just happened to this character? Okay, now she's this other thing. It just doesn't feel natural. But if they had shown us like a memory or unlocked memory or something that reminded or something that would cause this shift that happened, right then and there, or words that triggered her, and she heard it from something else. It was something to give us the indication that this character is gonna go through a huge mood swing. We got nothing, and all we got was weirdness.
And by the way, to be fair, not the fault of the actress. That is a flaw in the script. So just to be fair in this coverage, not everything was. Now she does things that are going to earn the ire of the fan base in due time. But I just want to be fair on what is her issue and what is the people who gave her the scripts issue. And in that case, you did not write this character very well at all. And I've heard that sometimes bad writing is a fake phrase for people to make their terrible comments about. I gave a very specific reason, and that's why I did this, to be specific about what was bad about the writing that this character suffered from. And if you saw at least the first 3 episodes of the show, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yes. And the
now,
last 3.
and Lorena, what was your take on Amanda Stenberg? Where do you sit with her?
Well, I hadn't heard of her before. Her acting was it was okay. I mean, I could take it or leave it. The main thing I just know from Amanda Stenberg was just comments that she'd made about the Acolyte. There was also that really cringe video that she did, kind of clapping back.
We'll get to that in a second. I got that.
Yeah. People talking about her, but one of the things that just really turned me off is she always seemed to be talking about her sexual preference. It's one thing. It's like it's some people talk about, oh well, I do work in the LGBTQ community, or I'm all for LGBTQ causes. Some people will do that very matter of factly, but not in Amanda's case. It was almost like that was all she was. And add that with this here, where they kept talking about how gay Star Wars was, like it was a joke. And as a Star Wars fan, I was like, this is not a joke, and I really don't appreciate that.
Well, and it's not a reason to watch a show necessarily,
right?
The story is always the best reason to watch the show. So I agree with you. I think more focus on what the show has for you as a story is going to sell more tickets. This stuff, it's probably good for the headlines, and it might be good. It might be good again on some level, but it's not going to work on the mass level that you're trying to get people to watch your show for. I think this backfired, if anything.
Yeah, it just felt like this whole thing was a campaign, an anti-fan campaign, right down to that first article I told you about, Kathleen Kennedy's statements about the fans, and also this one. It just felt like it was about really attacking the fans, and it really did not work in their favor, but then they continued on to say the same rhetoric about, oh yeah, the fans didn't support or didn't want to watch women hold hands or ethnic people hold hands. And I was like, no, not really. We didn't we didn't sign up for this war. We just wanted to see Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this what you were talking about, the Kathleen Kennedy statement?
Yes.
Heath, did you hear that when she said this again? And it by 2024, it seemed like that had been played out, to be honest. I was even surprised to read. I was like, oh man, we're going there again. It's not true. Fans
I don't remember a lot of this because I was checked out at this time.
Oh, okay. So you weren't even catching some of this.
I wasn't, right? Yes, and I know that's bad for the discussion, but at this point, I've been out for a while.
Well, let me ask you this, Heath. Did you hear about or see or anything this scene with the witches in episode 3, the power of many?
This is it. Well, no, yeah, I heard about this, yes, but I never watched it myself. So I'm always hesitant to comment. I'm like, okay, I didn't watch that myself, but I do remember a lot of jokes being made about this and whatever. So I remember this being a cultural moment, although I didn't see it myself.
Yeah, this was promised in episode 3, and I saw it. And by the way, I try to clear my head, and in fact, a lot of times I try not to listen to too many people before I watch something, because I can't tell you how many times I've heard a lot of bad things. I sit down, I watch something, and it's really not that bad. I've even heard fans praise things.
That happens a lot with the internet, right?
Yeah,
and that,
I'm like,
oh my God, this horrible thing has happened. Okay, then I don't want to watch it. Like, that's my initial reaction. And then you watch it and you're like, okay, that wasn't nearly as bad as what the internet made it out to be. That happens a lot. That's true.
And there's even parts of the fandom that are usually very negative that will sometimes say something is great. I'll go watch it, and I'm like, that's not. Believe it or not, Moana Part 2 was not that good. I was shocked at how little I liked Moana 2. Now, I love Moana 1. Love it. It's great. But Moana 2 was extremely unimpressive, and that got like thumbs up from everybody. And I was like, really? Anyway, this was one.
Yeah, it didn't for me. 2? I did.
Did you like it?
No.
Okay, so I'm not the only one. I actually haven't talked to anyone about it yet.
No.
I was shocked by how little I liked it. I was like, this is bad. And what a shame, because Moana, I love Moana. I studied her in depth. But anyway, back to the Acolyte. This lived up. This lived up to the negative spin. I watched it again, and I was like, is this bad, or am I just affected by things that I've heard? And I was like, oh God, this is so bad. This is awful. It's not Star Wars. It's even a little creepy and bizarre. I hated it. It
was so bad. With my channel members, we watched excuse me. Oh my gosh, forgive me. We watched Ahsoka like every week. My channel members and we watched Ahsoka, and we got a good amount of laughs and fun and clips, and stuff, out of it. This one, after like 2 episodes, I said, I cannot do this to y'all. I cannot do this, considering how bad. Something is really bad when you're just critiquing everything. You don't want to, but just the lack of quality forces you, as opposed to, writing's not so great, but there's some fun stuff that I'm kind of liking in here. So it's okay. Not with this. This was horrible. And I know Heath was like, I'm checked out, which I don't blame him. The reason that I'm checked into a lot of this stuff is to take away the excuse of you're racist, you're sexist. Supposedly, this is geared to me, that I am the market that they are trying to appeal to. And it's just like, no, you're not, and you're failing miserably. So it's like, while I do not want to be in, that particular ether, I'm in it. Because people need to know. It's not that, it's great because women in it and everyone's happy with it and it's great and all female Star Wars fans love it. No, not all female Star Wars fans love it. And as a matter of fact, Lucasfilm likes to ignore us for the most part when we talk out about this stuff.
No,
well, and you know what else?
We don't exist.
Well, the theory was that this was kind of a white male dominated brand. Well, and there's probably a predominancy of white dudes, at least from the 70s and 80s. I'm one of them.
It is. It's a fact.
Right. So demographically, I think there was a predominant, the pie chart has a lot of white guys in it. But the theory was that if we diversify it, instead of just catering to white males, we can bring more people to the table. And by the way, I'm for all that. The more people who are into Star Wars, the more conversations I can. That's great. I think if you're a fan of something, it's great to run into other fans. And I don't think we care about who is a fan. We just like that you're a fan. So the theory was that by diversifying by diversifying Star Wars or any brand, right? But here, Star Wars, by isolating the primary demographic and being like, hey, it's not about you, bro. Like, you're over there. That you're going to triple, quadruple the fan base and make it more inclusive, right?
That's sort of the idea, is like, let's expand the fan base, but they didn't expand the fan base. They excluded the fan base and that's the opposite of actually making money in general. If you
Well,
call
and
yourself in business, you can't do
Mhm.
that to your main audience, exclude them and tell them that they're awful because they exist.
well,
You
so
can't
I
do that.
agree with you. So isolate, kind of vilifying or at least minimalizing your core demographic. That's just a mistake from a branding standpoint. I don't think you have to be a genius to figure that one out. So that was a mistake. But the mistake that I find even less forgivable in a weird way
Mm.
is the theory failed. You did not expand the Star Wars fan base. You shrank
Okay.
the fan base. But the issue was they did not provide great characters. So you're going to diversify. You're going to bring all these other people on. This should have been and could have been a winning theory. It could have actually worked. You did not provide good stories or characters or writing. And so, there's been, I like deep down, I wish I could sometimes go to some of these actresses and be like, you think you hate me? You think you hate us? What about the people telling you to go out on these PR campaigns and torch the fans? Are they really your friend? How is what happened to your career after this? Like, are they ruining your career so that they can win brownie points? So I felt like they turned on the fans when the fans weren't the real problem. This is my take. And I feel like they should have been much harder on the studios that put them in poor roles, gave them terrible scripts, and told them to torpedo the people that would be tuning in to watch their shows. I thought that was just an egregious mistake.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I actually like the idea of the witches and all of the stuff that they did here. I just seeing this in Star Wars was just not the right place for it. Um, and I really do hope that the failure of this show doesn't stop the exploration of trying new things, but just don't spend $200 million on it
Well,
and
believe it
get
or
a
not,
good writer. Get a
Wow.
good writer, please.
well,
Get
they
a good
have
writer.
witches in Star Wars. This, for those who don't know,
Yeah.
I'm a Clone Wars guy. This is not the first time they put witches in Star Wars. Now, this did seem hopelessly off-brand to me.
Mhm.
However, this is not the first time they put it in Star Wars. The witches of Dathomir came from the Clone Wars, and they are pretty freaking cool. The Night Sisters, Ventress comes from this.
I like
this-
witches. They sound cool.
yeah, witches can be cool, man. Like, right?
Yeah, give us like the Stygian witches, or give us like the witches in Macbeth or something, like that. It's
Right. That's
actually
why I
use
like
them for
witches.
something. Don't just put them in there just to say, hey, guess what? We got witches. Isn't this cool?
Yeah, yeah. So the witches of Dathomir are actually white for the cross section of the fandom that really likes the Clone Wars. We also really like the Night Sisters and the witches of Dathomir and Mother
Mhm.
Townsend, who's the head witch. They're all really cool, and even a dark side, a Sith apprentice, Ventress, who's going to be in Tales of the Underworld. She's featured in it. She's a Night Sister. So we liked the witches. They worked. They were good. So they had a precedent, but I feel like they're misfiring in live action. They're getting something wrong in the translation. But witches could work. I agree with you, Retro.
Yeah, and I even like this little village of that's they're practicing the Force, but they're practicing it in a different way. Okay, cool.
That could
But
have worked. Yeah.
just the story itself didn't work well. Just like there's certain ideas I don't mind. I don't mind a Sith couple, going around terrorizing the galaxy. I don't mind that. Just don't tell me you've never heard of, that's broken lore though, because of
Right.
course there were no Sith during this for 1,000 years, unless you're gonna go 1,000 years into the past, and maybe that was the problem. They put the timeline too close to the prequels. I mean, maybe that was part of the problem.
Right.
In hindsight, there isn't much you can do, and I really would love to see the 78 percentage of critics that love this movie or love this series. I really want to know what they how they came up with that.
Well, the fans, I mean, clearly rejected this. It was not a good show, at least what I saw of it, and from what I've heard, it does not get much better. And Lorena, you're confirming that for me, that there wasn't much more that would surprise me in the show. Were there any positive takeaways, Lorena, in your opinion? Was there anything that you're like, the show's not getting enough credit for?
Oh,
Did we
did Doug
lose?
leave us? I think
Oh,
Doug,
I think we lost Doug.
I think we just had Doug exit. Oh,
Oh
Did
no!
we?
Was Paulie here, or is he still in green room?
oh,
Paulie, let us know if you're in the
I
green
don't
room.
know.
Oh, Paulie!
oh, it's Paulie.
How
Hey,
you
good to
doing?
see you. We just
Hey,
lost Doug, but we
Paulie.
had Paulie come on.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on with you, man?
Just watching movies and TV shows, and
Have you
I
seen
don't
this
know.
warfare lately?
I saw Warfare last week.
Is it good?
Oh.
Is so far my favorite movie of the year.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
well, I'm thinking about going and seeing it
Nice.
this weekend. Okay, all right. Doug was telling me that I go see it too. So, okay,
Yeah,
that's
it's
two. If I hear
incredible.
from Doug and you, Paulie, that I got to see it,
Okay.
then
Yeah, real quick. So let me
This
note the
weekend,
time.
all right.
I cut out here.
Okay.
Hey,
look, it's
Paulie,
Doug.
what's up,
Doug's
man?
back.
Thanks for joining.
Hey. Oh, Doug, I have to pop out. I got to go over to the Dark Council.
Oh, okay,
really
okay.
quickly
No,
later.
you
But I know
don't.
you had a
It's because I
question for
showed
me
up.
on this.
Yeah. Yes. If you don't mind answering that, was there any positive takeaways from the Acolyte? Was there anything that you thought fans didn't give it credit for, or something that maybe you want to stick up for, or was this just a non-starter from beginning to end?
A non-starter from beginning to end, and Disney owes Lee Jung Jae a big, huge apology because he was wasted in this show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
He was
And,
the
did
only
you
thing
feel
that
that,
kept me sane watching it was Lee Jung Jae.
And any comments on the rage twerk toward the fans before we leave, or before you have to check out? Was this the right way to handle it for her?
No, no.
Yeah,
No.
it was. I actually couldn't believe this happened. I was like, really? I was like, she what? I was like, man, they're like trying to like monetize the fan.
It's like, I get it. Make this and then stash it somewhere else.
Yeah,
Well,
or bring it out like 5 years later or something.
Yeah.
I don't think it was
Or
necessary to bring it out.
if it was like its own separate single, a standalone that had nothing to do with Acolyte or the fans, she's kind of hot.
Yeah,
I
she's
go,
kind of
"Oh,
hot.
The beat
Yeah.
was
I'm not gonna lie.
popping.
Yeah,
She's-
no,
and it's just, but because it is connected to the show, I almost thought this was a bad SNL skit.
Yeah, it does kind of
It
have that
would've
vibe,
worked.
right?
I'm
yeah,
like,
it would have worked.
It would.
yeah,
It would work.
yeah.
Yeah, she.
It's funny because either way it would work.
Yeah, I remember watching. I was like, man, it is a shame that this is so like middle finger like type of stuff, because she looks good in it. Like I was pretty impressed. But yeah, it was so anti-fan that I mean, you're not going to win the fans over like this. Obviously, the fans are going to turn against you at this point. So it seemed like a very foolish thing. And again, was this all her idea, or did someone like nudge her to do this? Like, I don't know.
Who knows? I think it was probably her idea, but
Well, Lorena, I'll tell you what, I know you got to go, but we will bring you back. I want to have a follow-up discussion later in the year, because we do have some things that have not occurred yet that I wanted to cover, like Andor Season 2, Tales of the Underworld, the movie Mandalorian and Grogu, Ahsoka Season 2, and of course, Epic Universe, a direct challenge to the Disney flagship. It's like two battleships meeting in the ocean here. So I want to get your take on that in a later episode.
All right. Thanks so much, Doug, for having me on, folks. Stay, watch the rest, especially since Paulie is now in the house.
All right.
Great talking to you, Lorena. Thank you so much.
Dude, take care, everyone.
Love you. Bye.
See you soon.
So, Paulie, you're just jumping in here. Do you care to comment about did you watch all of the episodes to The Acolyte?
I did not.
You did not. Did you watch any of the episodes?
I think I saw like 2.5 or 3, or it was all a blur, Douglas.
Okay, so you're with me. I saw the first 3 episodes, and I was like, you know what? I'm out. I'm not going to watch the rest of the show.
Yeah. I mean, it's just terrible. It was a terrible show from top to bottom. And then when you waste talent that you actually had with Carrie-Anne Moss and then the Asian gentleman, it's just like this is silly. This is beyond silly. And this person, Leslie, she obviously doesn't know Star Wars at all. She has no idea with the lore, with the relationships, with who can do what. You even had a gordo Jedi boy. It's like, dude, how could that kid pass the academy with that belly? Come on.
Yeah, there should be a minimum fitness standard to be
a
Jedi,
minimum.
How are you going to chase bounty hunters over rooftops? Like, you know what I'm saying? You got to do it.
You got to chase. He looks like he was chasing down burritos. Come on, come on, nerd girl, retro girl, let's go, retro nerd.
Oh man,
but
yeah.
No, really. I mean, like those little things just took you out. And I'll say this too, that the Jedi that was meditating for 10 years.
Oh yeah.
Which I like those little concepts, but he looked like he looked like he had just finished following the Grateful Dead's tour for a world tour. And they cleaned him up, but he still looked a little grungy. He just didn't look right. And so I put a photo of him meditating it with a photo from one of the characters from Team America, and with the fake beard, and it's the same thing, man. I think that's where the inspiration came from.
Team America.
Yeah. They had the little the little beards, little fake beards. I go, that's what. That guy's doing. Ahmed, exactly.
Yeah. He's like, it's uncanny. It's a perfect disguise.
So terrible, man. So now, pretty bad.
Yeah, and we covered some of those things, Paul. So you're in the consensus. We did like the presence of the Korean actor. We thought his presence was excellent and really had potential. Carrie-Anne Moss had some great presence there. If she was given a part, that could have really panned out. And I said a couple things on the writing side, and I'll just say this other thing from the writing side. The idea of a big scandalous event in the Jedi Order in which everyone begins to cover it up, and there's all these multiple perspectives. That's complex, So for someone who has left what appeared to be very amateur filmmaking fingerprints all over the place in the show. Man, you picked a really complex topic to tackle in a universe you don't seem to understand, in lore you don't want to follow, with characters that you don't care enough to write about. So, it just seemed like there was so many things that derailed this. This show.
And you're kind of putting it too close to the Skywalker timeline.
No, those are what I was saying before.
Oh, were you? Yeah. And bringing in Pelagus like that, because I did see like this. I saw that one little scene, where he's slithering out of a cave. I'm like,
there was no need for him to be there. It was a cheap antic to get people. Let's say, let's make season 2, and then you show Yoda at the end. Like, Yoda cares about these guys. Like, who are you?
That just means he's part of the cover up now, right?
Well, if he was even there, then he would have, if you bring Yoda in, he would have shut down this whole operation in episode 2, like, I don't know. It was pretty terrible. This is terrible.
Awful.
Well, and we showed, Paulie, we put side by side, The Mandalorian season 3 was still charting heavily in the Nielsen ratings, high on the Nielsen ratings, strong showing from the fans and viewership. The next show out was Ahsoka, and I put all the Nielsen ratings out. They lost half their audience between Mando season 3, which ended poorly, and Ahsoka.
Mhm.
And then they lost another half of that audience by the time Acolyte came out. And unfortunately, by the time the next show comes out, they probably lost half of that audience. So this is a pretty dramatic nosedive in terms of trends in who's watching. And so this is where we're headed. This was 2004. The Acolyte wraps up in late 2000 or in late summer 2024. And it's a disaster by all standards. And it's hard for me. I'll always listen to someone defend a show. And the best argument I could hear is, look, it's hokey as hell, but I just liked it. You know what? If it hits some funny,
Well, that's
bone
fine.
for you,
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
there are terrible movies that I like, and
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed about it.
Guilty
but I still like them.
pleasures. You got to have guilty pleasures in your life, you know?
Yeah.
And I can see where this would meet a guilty pleasure, especially with all, the shipping part, where I mean it was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. With this guy coming out of the water naked.
Oh yeah, it was so weird.
yeah.
And I was just like, oh, what am I looking at right now? Like, is he trying to seduce her? Like, what is happening?
Yeah, but seduction in Star Wars is psychological.
No,
it's ethical and join.
They
me.
made it physical. And
yeah, they're like, how about seduction? How about sexual seduction? Like, hey.
Yeah. Oh,
baby,
gosh.
join the dark side.
Little Timmy, please go to the next room. Cover your eyes, little Timmy. It was
bizarre. But I do think so. I wanted to say, The Last Jedi did such damage to the Star Wars franchise on the big screen, and somehow the fan base, myself included, has tried to find, I think Jon Favreau saved it with The Mandalorian.
Yes.
He brought it right back after the sequel trilogy ended. And then there was the audience came back, and slowly but surely they started to lose the audience. And I think this was the show that cut the throat and did it.
So it wasn't just one show. It wasn't two. It wasn't three. I think it was 5, right? We have 5 turkeys. Let's go through it. Let's go through the turkeys.
Let's do it.
Okay,
Heath, come on.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
The shows, in order to bring people back, you have got to do something amazing. It's not just enough to do something to create an incredible show. You've driven people away. You have to do something shocking to bring people back. I've been saying have some consistent hits.
Yes.
So the kind of like the bounce back, the belief, the hope was at the all-time high end of Mando season 2, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we all agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
Okay, so here's what we had since then: Book of Boba Fett,
Obi-Wan.
Kenobi, Ahsoka.
Willow. That's not Star Wars.
That's not Star Wars.
Mando season 3.
Mando season 3.
Ahsoka.
Okay, hold on. See, you threw me off. All right, let me go back again.
Right.
All right. So, but you see what I'm saying? It wasn't just one or two bad shows. We're talking at least. To me, it's 5. It's those. It's at the last several years, and besides Andor. And now a Skeleton Crew, there's nothing. All of it is just forgettable. I don't say this lightly. It's forgettable garbage.
It is.
And that's coming from me. I really just sit down and put something on, and I have the positive vibes, and I'm very open. So you had Douglas, just so much. There's so much bad will, so much bad content that no one saw Skeleton Crew. No one's probably going to see Andor season 2 because
I didn't see Andor season 1 because of that, and I'm going to go back and watch it because of all of you. But I'm just saying, I am the poster child of someone who didn't watch Andor season 1 because of what had come before.
Right.
So, and Paulie, here's your list. So you said there's Mando, which was great. Mando season 2 ended on the highest note, probably that Lucasfilm had in the Disney Plus era.
Disney Film Lucas, that was the height. Yeah,
that's the apex. Since then, and this is what Paulie was trying to say.
Yeah.
Book of Boba Fett, basically a fail. Obi-Wan Kenobi, basically a fail.
Terrible.
Then you had Mando season 3, basically a fail. Ahsoka season 1, some people liked it, but essentially it fell flat.
Fell
and
flat.
then here you have The Acolyte. That's your 5.
That's it. That's the 5. That's the
That's your
5,
5.
man. Then you're not including the animated stuff because people did like it, you know, and you're not including Andor.
I didn't include Andor because now here's the thing, and we did discuss this on a separate stream, but it's worth bringing it back up here. Andor is a great show. It's not just good. I thought it was great at times. There were some episodes I got very heavily invested in. Andor is a really solid show, but nobody saw it. And so there's a pattern. The best Star Wars comes after some of the worst Star Wars. So you had Obi-Wan Kenobi, which I think the reason so Boba Fett failed, but he was a side character that everyone loved, right? A mysterious side character that everyone loved. Obi-Wan Kenobi took 2 major legacy characters to essentially strike out. Now, some people liked it, but ultimately, I don't think Kenobi had the effect of bringing fans to the table. They still drove off some fans with 2 major legacy characters in Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. What came right after that big failure was Andor. Nobody saw it. And Skeleton Crew, the other good one, nobody saw it either because it came right after The Acolyte, like right after.
Yeah.
So, you know, there is this pattern of really good Star Wars coming in right at the end of really bad Star Wars. And Heath, you've made this point several times. You know, why is it on me to come back? You know, you keep making bad content. Why, you know, how many times do you do that before I don't have to? I don't owe you another watch. I don't owe you my fandom, you know?
Right. And just saying, hey, this is a show about Obi-Wan Kenobi is not enough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been demonstrated. That's not enough. I mean, and, you know, people will say that about Darth Vader. Oh, just do a show about Darth Vader. If you say we're doing a Darth Vader show, I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true.
It has to have some content that's not going to ruin the lore that's already been set in place, but that's going to add more to the character, more layers, and be interesting. But they're unable to do that. And I think especially it comes from the fact that a lot of the writers are chosen specifically because they don't appreciate Star Wars and some of these.
So I think that's what happened. We had the 5 big hits with the Acolyte being the knockout blow in this case. It was a boxing match, and I think the Acolyte delivered that shot, and the fans went down, and they ain't coming back up. At least not yet. There is a chance that in a post-Kennedy Lucasfilm era that there is a revitalization of Star Wars, and that fans come back, and, you know, God willing, a new generation make Star Wars their own. Gen Z, you know, who knows what's going to happen. But at this point, in as 2024 moves toward the end, Lucasfilm is in a bad place. Star Wars is in a bad place. And at this point, I have seen, it's not just that they're bad shows, right, guys? You know, these are 5, 6, 8 hour investments. It's not a 2-hour movie that I said that's a bad movie. You're asking for 6 hours of my life to watch all these 1 hour long episode shows, and it's not good. Now I have all this space in my head that didn't exist before of bad Star Wars. I know what bad Star Wars looks like.
It's
and
killed.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, sweetie, please.
Well, I was going to say some of these should have been just 2-hour movies. Okay.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of
done that better.
that's pad out, you know, and it's, I'm sitting there. It's like, you know, I'm looking at my watch saying, okay, well, when are we going to stop doing everything in real time and actually have a story here?
Yeah. Well, so let's move on from the Acolyte because I want to get to the end of the Kennedy era, and I wanted to have some robust discussion there. But there are a couple things that are worth covering. One, just in the great tradition of making a lot of mistakes down the stretch here, they also spent $250 million making the video game Star Wars Outlaws. This was heavily ideological in the way this was pitched and covered, and nobody bought it. This was considered a commercial failure. $250 million to make this video game.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was a bust. Now, I didn't play it. I don't know anything about it. I'm not a video game guy. Heath, did you by any chance?
I am not a
Running
video
with
game
Outlaw.
guy. I didn't know this existed.
Okay.
I'm come to me for the tabletop. That my nephews bought me StarCraft 2 last Christmas. I've been catching up on that. So that's where I am on.
So, but I just wanted to point out to everybody, this cost $250 million to make this video game that nobody bought. So even in an area of pop culture that I'm not involved in, they're seeing it too out there on the video game side. Same thing, just like Acolyte cost 200 and whatever $million to make, and it's a bust. Well, the video game guys are getting their dose for similar costs. And this is, we move on to the next thing. So December 2nd of 2024, at the end of the year, they came out with this show, Skeleton Crew. And I'll just tell you my little brief encounter with this. I didn't care about this. I didn't know about it. I heard YouTubers mention that there's a show coming out called Skeleton Crew. I perked up a little bit that Jude Law. I was like, oh, Jude Law's in it. That's interesting. I heard it was going to be with kids. I remember watching a trailer and it looked like suburban America, but they were aliens. I was like, oh God, this does not look interesting at all. So my interest was zero. I had zero interest. It came out. It went a couple weeks. No one was really talking about it. And then one night we had nothing to do, and I asked my son. I was like, "Hey, you want to watch this Star Wars show, Skeleton Crew?" He's like, "No." So I didn't watch it. So a week later, he's like, "Dad, let's watch Skeleton Crew." So I was like, "Okay." Sat down, watched it, loved it. And so he's like, "Dad, let's watch this." So we caught up. I think it was about 3 weeks in. So we watched 3 episodes. I was like, this is a good show. How could? So I started looking for people talking about it on YouTube, and the few people who did also said they were enjoying it for the most part. We ended up watching this every week right when it came out. He was excited about it. It was me and him. My older son, who plays baseball, he's more of a baseball bro. He's not really into Star Wars. He sat down and he was watching it with us. So, and then my wife started sitting down and watch. So we started, by the end of Skeleton Crew, it was a full family event where we were all watching it. And I was like, you know what? This is going to chart. This is going to show up on the Nielsen ratings. I guarantee it. And I would check and I would check and I would check, and it never showed. The show never charted. It did not have the viewership, which means it performed worse than the Acolyte in terms of viewership. And it was a good show. It was a solid show. I loved it. My son used his own money to buy those Black Series figures. He has all the kids. He has all 6 of the Black Series toys that came out. He bought with his own cash. So he bought the Lego set, the Onyx Cinder, the ship. So this show had some magic. They said it was like Star Wars and Goonies mixed together, which I would say is exactly correct. Paulie, you sounded like you liked the show. Did you watch it?
Oh yeah, me and Kamran, we watched it and reviewed it every week.
Oh, okay.
On our live show. First of all, God bless you and your family with your sons. I love hearing that. I love hearing anytime fathers and sons can share stuff like this. Whether it's whatever the IP is, that's really cool. Now, here's the thing. This is a casualty of war.
Yes, it is.
I felt as much as every day, I almost wanted it to suck just so it could be part of that 5.
Yeah, just so we could be done with it, right?
Right. But it's such a lovable show. It really is. And there's so many things to like about it. And sure, you can. If anything, it was like a nerd nitpicking stuff with it. I always love doing stuff like that, rather than having to deal with Acolyte. This is engaging, it's enduring. The kids are wonderful. Jude Law is an incredible actor. He has been for decades. This guy he's got such a range. Just within this show, you got to see his range, because just like, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? He's charming. He's devilish.
And you know what else he did that was kind of amazing?
Yeah.
For all of his charisma and star power, and he has both, he never upstaged the children actors. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
But did you ever sense that he upstaged him or he stole the show or anything?
No. I mean, but when he turned on the the evil look, you believed it.
Oh yeah, I was intimidated.
You believed it, and that there's not a lot of actors that can do that, man.
That's true.
Just ask Gal Gadot and Snow White. So yeah, I just felt bad for the show because it's like no one saw it, man, and that's all right. This show will find a home with some of the OG fans. Heath is gonna watch it. He's gonna get back to me.
Maybe I will. Like after I got to get to Andor, and then do Andor season 2, and it may well be that I should check out Skeleton Crew at the same time. I mean, may well be.
Skeleton Crew
it's
is
because
exactly
you guys recommend it. That's the
Right.
word of mouth kind of thing. The people who I trust. But when I just saw it come by, it's not anything that I would have ever picked up on.
Do you know that my kids actually wanted to see Goonies after this?
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, yeah. I go, I think he overheard someone on a YouTube channel say Goonies and Star Wars. He goes, "What's Goonies?" And I was like, "Oh my God, we got to see Goonies." So, I go, it's very much like it. I go, it's kids that go on an adventure, and so we sat there and watched Goonies, because our fix, it was over. The show was over, so there was no family event. So the next thing we did was we had a family movie night. We watched the Goonies, and
did they like it?
Oh yeah, it was great, and I actually rediscovered the music on the soundtrack. So I'm a soundtrack guy, so I ended up reconnecting with the music that. So they did like it, especially the pirate ships.
Cool.
Anyway, this was a good show, and Paulie, I hope you're right. I hope this finds an audience. I hope this does something. What I'm hoping secretly is that there was an uptick in merchandise sales that was unexpected, and that the execs are
Correct.
Skeleton Crew sold.
I think when they're looking at the ledger and then according to Cameron's reporting, is that internally they were very happy with this show. And
they didn't spend a whole lot with this, right? Am I correct on that?
Compared to Andor,
the budget was 136 million, so it wasn't cheap. But it was a pretty far cry from the 250 million they shelled out for Acolyte.
And Acolyte looked cheap as F, and this looked beautiful.
This was wonderful, yes.
This looked beautiful, and so you brought something else up. It seems that when Favreau's really invested, that the shows look great. They're pretty decent to good. The ones that he's not hands off, he's hands out and not involved. Maybe it's more KK. They look like crap, man. They look cheap.
I have
they look really cheap.
I've come to the same conclusion. It seems there's certain fingerprints left behind on a Kennedy production or even Kennedy interference that having a female lead is a dead giveaway. Now that doesn't bother me. But it does it if it feels like a Kennedy product, which is steal the show with a lot of sound and fury, but it signifies nothing. That seems to be the style she goes with. This didn't really have that, so there was no real Kathleen Kennedy fingerprints. The girls in this were very prominent, but so were the other characters. So it seemed like the screen time was shared equally, and they were likable. The characters were likable in this as well. All of them were likable.
Oh,
and there was adventure. And there was also a little bit of danger in this. I noticed that, to a kid, it's scary to go to a spaceport, right? Where there's adults and they're drinking at a bar. And, this guy's, he's looking at your credits and now he wants to know if you have more. What do you say? And let's run back to the docks and maybe that's adventuresome. That's adventure for a kid. Just the adult world, is adventure. So, this had all that. So I do think you're right, Paulie, in that I think Favreau knows how to add doses of magic into the show. Mm-hmm. He knows how to introduce a little bit of magic. And I think that's what Star Wars needed. And I was pleased to see that it was there, but I was upset to hear that the fans left the auditorium, by the time this came through. So anyway, this closes. Any other comments, Heath or Retro on Retro? Did you say you saw Skeleton Crew or no?
Oh yeah, I did. It was amazing. Everything you guys said, I totally agree. And for me, I actually didn't get started into watching it pretty late. But there were a lot of people who were just talking about characters and how the characters they really enjoyed. And oh my god, I almost forgot the elephant guy. What's his name? Nate,
Neil.
I think.
Neil.
Neil. He's so cute. And
Yeah.
so I saw so many memes of Neil. And I was like, okay, wait a minute, I gotta check this out, just at least for Neil. And it was really so good. I mean, there were moments, like you said, that had that intimidation factor. It seemed it started. It was a slow burn at first. In the first 2 episodes, it was a little bit slow. I was like, what's going to happen here? Can we like quicken the pace a little? But they really got into their stride by the 3rd episode. I would say even the 2nd one, they really got into it, and it was really the last few minutes of the last episode. I actually cried. It was like a moment. It was like such a tender moment, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is great. This is the magic of Star Wars right here." Um,
Well, it
and
even had a little bit of like father-son dynamic and mother-daughter dynamic
yes,
introduced in the later episodes when the kids were reunited with the parents. So I've always appreciated shows where the parent is sucked into the kid's adventure and has to play a
yes,
part in it. Where
yes,
the kid gets to see their parent, in a kid's adventure, living
yeah.
up, standing up for it and saving the day or having their moment. And this show gave that.
Yeah. They were like the parents really shined, and came through for their kids in a big way. They helped each other. Every character goes through a little bit of a change and gets their moment to be center stage, if you will, or like just have their character moment, which I think is a lost art in a lot of these
Yes.
series. Like to be able to like, hey, we're gonna have this character all along. We drop you hints of a little bit of what's going to happen with that character or what they're going to reveal about themselves, and then unload on the audience this really highly emotional moment where you see them change and grow. It's just really nice to see development like that,
And guess what?
in the storyline.
Guess what? The show's diverse.
Oh,
It didn't trumpet that fact. It just delivered the show. And I didn't hear a single person complaining about diversity or anything like that in the show.
No, they did. They did.
Oh, you
Doug.
did?
oh, they
No,
did?
they did. There's those channels that are gonna do that no matter what.
Oh, okay. I did not hear any of it, but I
and
believe you when you say you're.
and then there was a thing like, oh, the same sex parents, and they went wild over that. This is gonna be crazy. This is gonna be crazy, and it was nothing, right?
I didn't even notice it the
They're
first time.
barely in the thing. They're
I
in
missed
for
it. I didn't even know it
Like,
happened.
so what? So what?
Yeah.
It was, everything was done with taste. Even
that had
but,
nothing to do with the story. You know
Right.
what I mean?
but even with the little kid, the kids, whatever he is, like mixed race and then Asian, people were complaining about that.
Well,
There's just always going to be that part of a fandom that's
Yeah.
never going to be happy. It's got to be how it was. No, it's like, come on, get over it. These are obviously very talented kid actors, so charming, a lot of charisma. I mean, being a kid actor, casting for kid actors, it's tough enough. And Heath knows, because Heath has casted in his short films. It's tough to cast, man. So hats off to this was a great little cast.
yeah,
Oh,
and they had chemistry, which isn't always guaranteed with adult actors, much less kid actors. They had a lot of chemistry, and they had all the things you would want in the show. So I just wanted to go on the record. I love Skeleton Crew. I enjoyed it. My kids liked it, and they're the target
much fun.
demographic. So, so anyway, and the good news is that we close out 2024 with a slight uptick because of Skeleton Crew, in my opinion, that it shows me that they can do it, right? That there is some magic there. And I understand the Heath side of the fandom that's like, look, I'm out. Like, you blew it. You had your 5 shots. you know, I'm out. Like, I'm not doing it. So I understand that. I'm not against that side of the fandom by any stretch. But because I do think that Lucasfilm has to earn it. But
Yeah.
they're showing me with Skeleton Crew that they can do it. And that gives me some hope that the next chapter for Lucasfilm might be a good chapter. So what happens next? What's the first bit of information as we get into 2025? And this is really the end part of our several week-long discussion. But let's see, what day is it? It is February 24th, 2025. We hear it started from a Matt Bellany post,
Which is what started all of this.
Right.
And why we're
Exactly.
here.
The Matt Bellany post came out, then it was picked up by Variety, it was then picked up by The Hollywood Reporter, and they said, Star Wars boss Kathleen Kennedy planning to exit. I heard many YouTube stations like, that'll never happen, because that's what they've been saying, and they've been right. However, I just had that feeling, this is it. She's done. They're not going to. They've never reported it in the trades, ever. There was never even. They didn't even report rumors. None of it. So here we hear that she's on her way out, and I believe it. We've covered all this. 2023 was a turning point. Lucasfilm, Disney, they were besieged. 2024, they dumped out a lot more bad material. They've got no legs to stand on, and the Skeleton Crew project was a Jon Favreau project. So she can't take credit for that. So, Paulie, where were you with this when you heard that she was going to step away? Were you skeptical, or were you like, oh, I have a funny feeling this is it?
I usually, with this stuff, I take my lead off of Cameron, because he gets this information, and we talk about it. This business is really, really tough.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just let me just speak from some personal experience, and just in that you could be trained, you could do all the right things, you can write the greatest scripts, you can even have connections, but that doesn't guarantee you anything. You can even get a meeting. You can even say, "Oh, that film is going to happen. We're going to do your movie, do your thing," and then 4 years later, no movement has happened, and yet maybe you still have a holding deal. Maybe you still have a first look deal. That is the majority of what happens. Now the business has been contracting, and then
Right.
and then you have people with no talent that find themselves in this lucky position and have been doing what KK has been doing forever. What is she a talent of? She, I mean, look at her track record with Star Wars now that since George Lucas has left. So this just says to me, it's right on par with Hollywood. It's gonna take forever for someone that big, to leave. Yeah, it's not gonna be how we want. Where like someone's gonna get publicly fired, like a Victoria Alonso at Marvel, and even then there was a lot of trouble there. So yeah, man, unfortunately, this business rewards the people with terrible intentions as well as talented creatives.
Well, but there's a certain type of personality that learns how to fight their way to the top of the hill and then defend the top of the hill, and it's not always the person you want to see up there, and they're not easy to knock off that hill. They're there for a reason. It may not be talent, but they have a skill set somewhere. And I will say in the one defense for Kathleen Kennedy is her rap sheet leading up to 2012 was impeccable. Hollywood royalty. She, involved in the greatest shows of my childhood, but I think ultimately her story will be that this person who is involved at the highest levels in some of the greatest shows over multiple decades, once they turned her over to the specific job of a studio head, she collapsed. And that's going to be the story with her.
I mean, I'll give you this. I hear she makes a hell of a cup of coffee. So
that's a hell of a latte.
I'll give you that, but you know, that's it. I know too many producer people like I just know too many people like this, right? And how they screwed people over to get to the top, completely ruthless. No, you know, I just know there's just too many of them, and they succeed in the business all the time, brother. You know, so you know, I've told. So back to this: is this happening? It has been happening. It's gonna happen, and you know, adios, bye bye.
Yeah, I think she's done. I think, in fact, I think there will be some sort of an announcement at Star Wars Celebration 2025 that she is, in fact, leaving. Now, she did come back and retort with this Deadline article where you know, she goes, "I'm not retiring." Now, it's funny because Cameron sounds like he's affected you, Paulie, and you, Heath, and Retro similarly. When I read this article, I saw what I think he would have pointed out, which is she didn't deny that she's leaving. She just denied that she's retiring. You can go to another studio. You can start your own studio. You can do whatever you want and not retire. But
no, and that wasn't the question. That wasn't the question.
Which was not what people were interested in. Right. That was not the point. Right.
And if you read the whole article, which I did, and I think Cameron discussed it on his Patreon, but if you read it yourself, which, like I said, I went from beginning to end on this, and Heath, we talked about it on your channel as well.
Yes.
She comes out swinging like, I'm not retiring. And that's not what I was looking for, because I don't care if you retire. I just want you out of Lucasfilm, right? She never denies that. She even says in a month to the end of the year. So she keeps the time frame. And at the end, like, the article ends in the most like lackadaisical, ambivalent way possible. He's like, "So are you leaving?" And she's like, "I don't know. I just don't know."
Right.
And I'm like, that's the conclusion to your article?
Which is nothing you would say if you were staying. Like if
Yeah.
you knew, hey, this is my job. There's nothing you would say.
Yeah, and this was supposed to be the takedown of the the Variety article, and it's like you didn't say much. You really didn't say a whole lot, except for you don't want people to think that you're being fired or that you're retiring, you know, from Lucasfilm.
Right, but we already covered earlier last year, according to this part of the timeline, she sold her home. You know, now there's talk of retirement. She doesn't deny it. So, you know, I think the Kennedy era is over. It is over. We have seen what she could do. I would say it was an era marked by anti-creativity, anti-Star Wars. This seemed at times antithetical to Star Wars and the vision of George Lucas. Even George Lucas's worst efforts in the prequels have had legs. You know, they have lived on. There are things that were culturally relevant in the prequels. I don't think, and I've heard people make the case that, oh, in 10 years, people are going to talk about the sequel trilogy the same way. I don't think so. I do not believe that's true. And I'll tell you why. The reason the prequels have legs, okay, is because underneath the hood of a poorly made film or a couple of films and very bad dialogue, there's an incredible story there. From an archetypal standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, there's a lot of meat underneath the hood. And that's why these shows have lived on. A lot of the spin-off shows, the Clone Wars animated series, a lot of these things come from the prequel era. The sequel trilogy has nothing under the hood. It is actually empty. So it will not live on. It will not have a second life. Fans will not look back favorably. So I think this is culturally a dead end in terms of a filmmaking project. Anyone else want to chime in? Like, what do you feel? What do you think the legacy of Kennedy, the Kennedy era of Star Wars, 2012, 2025, what do you think it'll be? Heath, let's start with you there.
Well, I think you have to look at it objectively and say that it's the destruction of one of the greatest film franchises in history. I mean, this is not better. Star Wars is not better for having been through Disney. I mean, that's what you have to say. Is Star Wars in a better place now? And I think the answer is absolutely no, it's not. I mean, we've had the highs, we've had the lows, but we've also had the highs, like we've talked about. I mean, you know,
right. We give it all of its fair shake.
When you take a look at, like, okay, so now is Star Wars, when we think about everything that Star Wars could have been, we're like, okay, Disney now has Star Wars. when its credibility was so high in storytelling. And the prequels may have been questionable to some people like me. Okay, now Disney at the time, who had great credibility with storytelling, it's going to take Star Wars and what we were about to get. Now, where are we? I think we have to say this worse off.
Yeah.
Much.
Retro, how do you feel? Like the legacy of Kathleen Kennedy. Now, and the way I'm asking, what do you think people will say 15 years from now when they look back? Will there be any redeeming qualities, or is it going to get worse?
Well, I would say that she, I think one of the worst things that she did was not only take down Star Wars, but also Indiana Jones as well.
And Willow, yeah.
And Willow. Yeah. And that Lucasfilm, these were the legacy projects, that we remember from Lucasfilm. And then we're like, we're looking to Lucasfilm to create new things, to give us new projects, and which we haven't gotten new IPs out of Lucasfilm. So she did absolutely nothing but sit on her hands, and she made all of those projects worse, inserting ideas that were contrary to what the story. She did not care about the story or the lore of it. It was more about making sure her ideas of what she thought, was the right way to, I suppose. And I don't know if that could be taken as, just her particular idea set. Fans are here to see the legacy of what we've seen before in that franchise. We are not here to hear your ideas. It's just, she did the worst thing that you can do to IP, which is destroy them, and work against them, single-handedly. So
yeah,
it's not going to be a great legacy of Lucasfilm under her control.
Yeah, I think what Paulie was saying, she makes a great cup of coffee. I feel like we just witnessed, there's always that person who sits there and goes, I could do a better job than the boss. I could do that. Anyone can write a script. Anyone could make a movie. Anyone could do this. I should be able to do this. Why can't I do this? Well, we just witnessed the most grand experiment in history. The person who was the assistant who thought they could run Lucasfilm was given, 13 years? What is that? How long it was? 13 years of unmitigated access. The sky's the limit. What was a golden age of funding for films, billions of dollars. We added it up. $10.7 billion spent on this IP in the 13 years that we talked about. Unprecedented. And it led to a big fat zero in the end. So you got your experiment. You're not better than the visionary. Paulie, what do you think? What are fans going to say? What are people going to say when they look back 15 years from now, 20 years from now at Lucasfilm during this era?
Honey, where are my reading glasses? I can't see anything.
That's a practical answer.
I don't know, Douglas. I mean, looking back, like in 20 years and looking back at this era.
Yeah.
I mean, has there been anything like that where an IP has had glory days, then fallen bad times, and have come back, and then we have some objectivity? Has that ever happened?
Disney.
I don't know. This is pretty unprecedented.
Disney has done that. Disney. Remember, it had a renaissance basically after Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, that was a studio though. It wasn't really an IP, I mean, you're right. But and Hollywood has gone through that as well. But
maybe like Super Mario Brothers, that movie didn't do that IP any favors, and the new movie kind of resurrected it. Maybe that's not a great example, but that might be an example of return to form.
But that's not everything Mario was. Mario is a video game.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Come to think of it, I haven't. No, actually, you're making sense. Like after the IP has gone downward, it's
right.
just
I
like
mean,
you can't really come back.
I think what the last 10 years plus have done is made Lucas's properties a lot better. Like, I'm more fonder of the prequels, even though I hated them when they came out.
Right.
And like, so there's that. There's love for the EU, for the books, the 90s properties.
Comic books.
Now more than ever, there's people like me are tunneling back and reading those books from the 90s and from the aughts. So, that's what, 25, 30 years. Wow. I mean, it's crazy. That's crazy. So I think if anything, a lot of this stuff is going to be forgotten. This is very forgettable.
Yep.
Sad.
Stories, man. These are really bad. And that's the problem, is that it's like discovering a music band's album for the first time, and you find out that, oh man, this came out 15 years ago. This came out 20 years ago.
Yep.
This music is incredible. I don't see anyone's going to have that with these films.
No.
I think, maybe like we said, like with Skeleton Crew and Andor, and then the Rogue Ones. That's probably it. Because the thing with Andor is that this guy has a vision of what Star Wars is. You might not like it and agree with it, but man, it is it's pretty incredible. And it's
coherent.
Yeah, and it's definitely a vision. It's definitely, now we can talk on different levels about it. That's why I can't wait for the second season. But what can you talk about with these other shows, man? Other than that, they've also have ruined, like you said, Ben Kenobi, Anakin, and the smaller characters. So they're all goofballs, and then they all also too with Thrawn. Thrawn looked like a cosplayer on a weekend binger, and he's had too many McDonald's, man.
And I was a huge Ahsoka Tano fan, and I feel like the live action one actually made me weakened that enthusiasm for that character.
Yeah. I can say we all love Rosario Dawson. It's just her portrayal, the character, the way it's written is just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, the Ahsoka show was ridiculous. I think her appearance, her was it her guest starring appearance? That was a Mando.
Yeah, Mando season 2.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
that was really exciting. And what happened? I know some people like it more than I do, but I did not like that television.
I liked one episode out of it, and we covered it, and it wasn't a good show. That it had some Hallmark amateur filmmaking flaws to it, but I was pretty geeked out over Ahsoka Tano, and man, they blew it. I just feel like they blew it with that show. And
if we're talking about Star Wars, why there should never be that in the discussion. That's what I just don't understand, because people are. It's like there shouldn't be storytelling concessions, and yet there are.
Well, and you know what else there is? There's the sacred fire of filmmaking, right? When I saw Star Wars, Paulie, Heath, and Retro, Star Trek, we saw these great films in the late 70s, early 80s, into the 90s, and we wanted to be a part of it. I became a writer. We all kind of gravitated in some way toward wanting to create some version of that ourselves, to being a professional, to being part of it. And if you looked under the hood at Hollywood, at least some huge cross section of those craftsmen, screenwriters, directors, and filmmakers were all inspired by those films. This era inspired nobody and will bring nobody out to Hollywood when they grow up. This is not inspiring. This doused the sacred fire of storytelling, of filmmaking. This made people want to become anything but involved with Hollywood. So, there's that effect too. The fact that they've weakened another generation that won't answer the call when they get older to come and become great storytellers or filmmakers or craftsmen or to be a part of something like this. Who's gonna?
But there might be other things that do that. I mean, there might be other things that do that inspire storytelling and things like that. I mean,
but it won't be this.
But it's not going to be this. And when you ask, like, what are people going to say about it in 15 years? Well, there may be historians or film people who are following the franchise. I don't think they're going to say much of anything because I think it's going to be forgotten. I mean, think about something that was forgettable from 15 years ago. You can't because it's forgettable because we've forgotten about it. I mean, I don't. We still talk about the original Star Wars. We still talk about The Empire Strikes Back. We still talk about Return of the Jedi. I mean, I don't think we're going to be talking about these things. So what are people going to say? I think they're going to say nothing, and that's what you need to know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. I think Kathleen has done her bit. I think the damage has been done. It's shocking how long this lasted as far as I'm concerned. I do think that this will be studied. But some college course will study this because I just don't know how you could be this egregiously flawed and off course for so long. It's got to be a marvel of sociology, psychology, ego, whatever. I don't know. But someone needs to study this. There's going to be a documentary about this one day that chronicles this in great detail and does interviews. What went wrong? How the heck did you guys land on these squares? And there might be stuff we don't even know about in the background that'll come to fruition or come to the surface one day and maybe explain why these people were so misguided on it. But the Kennedy era, I believe, is over. I believe the future of Lucasfilm will be in the hands of Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. That's my personal belief. Retro, what do you think?
Well, I'm not sure what hands it'll end up in, but I do agree. I think better days will be had when she departs. It just hasn't been the right fit, if you will, to be kind. And I don't know, I don't know what to expect. It just really must be about storytelling and like actually try to come up with a way.
Can Star Wars come back, Retro?
It could. It's going to take consistency, though.
Yeah.
It's going to take consistent, proven success. If it doesn't happen that way, then people are just going to, we're back to the old stuff again. Or even there are some things where you'll just say, hey, that wasn't for me, but I can respect how good that was. That was well made. The actors were great. There's great dialogue. Just wasn't my cup of tea. But this stuff is not that. This is not that at all. So it's completely against the entire flavor of Star Wars as a whole, or what was true about Star Wars as legacy, and even trying to move forward. There has to be connective tissue, or it's just going to look like Star Trek.
Yeah.
Well, and that doesn't look any good.
No, not even like new Star Trek. That's a whole nother set of videos that right there. But
Is Star Wars going to make any sort of a comeback?
Me?
Yeah. Do you think it can make a comeback, and would you be there for it if it started to get on the right track?
I mean, I would be there for it, but I think it's going to take more than consistency too. Like what I say, if somebody else comes in and is heading up Lucasfilm and Star Wars, they're going to have to do something that's really shocking, because it's not going to be enough to produce great stuff consistently, because if nobody shows up for that great stuff, then it doesn't matter. We've had that discussion with Andor, with Skeleton Crew, with whatever. It doesn't matter if you make a great show if nobody shows up to watch it. So one thing that I think that a new head of Lucasfilm will have to do is do something absolutely shocking that would even reach somebody who has been tuned out for the last 20 years. And I'm talking about, like, the Gen X, my aunt, who didn't even go and see the last sequel trilogy movie. Like the people who tuned out at that point after the
Last Jedi
before the Rise of Skywalker. How do you get those people back? And it's not good enough to go and make 3 good TV shows, because that's not going to be shocking enough. And even what Cameron was talking about, like, hey, we're going to settle a lawsuit with Gina Carano. Someone who tuned out after the Last Jedi is not following something on YouTube about Star Wars to find out that, oh my God, a lawsuit between one of the actors on one of the TV shows was that's not going to bring people back. Now, that will bring some people back who are following those kinds of things, but that's not enough people. So, I mean, you've got to do something really radical that's going to shake up everything, that's going to bring Gen X people back who tuned out after the Last Jedi and have them bring new people with them. That would be what I would say.
All
like,
right.
That might be a way for it to come back, but that's what it's going to take.
Well, then let's do this. We're going to finish up with a round robin. Briefly, I'm going to ask each of you individual. I'm going to pick one of you to comment, and then I'll pick. We'll go to the next. There's a couple pokers in the fire for Lucasfilm, so there will be some follow through here in the next year. So, Paulie, I'm going to start with you. Is this going to be a hit, or is it going to be a miss? Andor season 2. Diego Luna.
In what regards?
Is Andor season 2 going to be a good show? Are people going to watch it? And is it going to be a high quality show? Is this going to move the needle at all?
It's 2 different things. People are not going to watch it, but it's going to be a great high quality show.
Oh, okay. I have a funny feeling because of the great word of mouth that Andor received. Now, not a lot of people watched Andor, but it got great word of mouth. This might actually gather up some people that didn't watch the first season who might check in for season 2 to see what's going on. And you might even see them go back to watch the first season of Andor.
I hope so. I hope you're right.
Yeah. Interesting. So you think it's a great show that no one's going to watch. It's going to be a repeat of Andor season 1 in essence.
Yeah, because ultimately we know what happens with this character. I think people have tuned out, but I mean, this is, I'm going to be watching this it's 3 episodes every week. So that's pretty cool. It's basically 4 mini movies, which they're trying to go for this binge thing, which I think could work, and Gilroy's got his vision, and he's like, you guys are going to enjoy watching these. Basically, we've done, was it 4 mini movies, whatever it is,
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. They're going to need to pick up the pace. A lot of people complain that it did go on to, was a little slow, but from what I hear, this one does pick up the pace. So yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Heath, hit or miss here?
Well, I haven't watched Andor season. Mandalorian Grogu.
Mandalorian Grogu, the first feature film since Rise of Skywalker. Is this going to be a hit? Are people going to go to see it? Is it going to make money? Those are separate questions.
Okay, those are separate questions. Will it make money? Probably, because that right now, that's of everything that Lucasfilm has got. That's punching the 2 things that people like. Okay, Mandalorian and Grogu. So I can see people turning out for that, at least for opening weekend and whatever, on Mandalorian and Grogu alone. Now, if it sucks, then that's gonna get passed around really fast. But that right now is the thing that people like the most. Do I have any great hope that it's going to actually be great storytelling? Personally, I don't. After having tuned out with The Mandalorian, that because for that same reason, it's punching the things that people love. So can you actually produce a fantastic story? If they can, then it could be amazing. But right now, I'm thinking, hey, that's the thing that people can punch to get people in the theater on opening weekend. But do I have great hope that that's going to be just an amazing story? I do not.
My worry is too, Mandalorian season 3 was a bust. The last time people were really excited about The Mandalorian and Grogu was 2020 to 2021 when Mando season 2 came out.
And that was
time.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that's the last time Mando and Grogu had real buzz.
Well, right,
because they blew it with season 3. So part of me is worried that this might feel like a movie from a bygone era.
That could be. They actually blew that with Book of Boba Fett because they resolved the major question of Grogu. Is he going to pick the Beskar male, or is he going to pick the lightsaber? I mean, this was a big deal, and that could have been something that was talked about for a complete year. I mean, that could have been just a huge thing, and that was completely blown in Book of Boba Fett. So, you know, if they had left, and I think you're right, Doug, if they had left that choice open, and then all of a sudden you're going to have this movie, and you're going to resolve that choice, we would have had people talking about that choice for a year, 2 years, whatever, then everyone would have been there for that movie. So I agree with you. That's a risk. This seems like this could also seem like a movie that is 2 years too late. Could be.
Yeah. Or 3 or 4 even.
Or 3 or 4. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be.
All right. And retro, hit or miss here. Ahsoka season 2. Anyone going to watch it? Is it going to do any good? Is it going to be well written?
Miss. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's going to be miss because season 1 really didn't do that great. And I don't have high hopes for it if it's still written by the same people, because there was so much about the script I had so many problems with, and just like so many lore breaking things. It was a fun watch.
They messed it up. I didn't like the other galaxy, and
it was a fun watch, no doubt. I laughed my butt off watching this, which I don't think you're supposed to. It's supposed to be like serious Star Wars, but I had a good time, with it. But it was very ridiculous, a lot of the stuff. So this was a tough one. There may be some core fans that will support this and love it, and there's a possibility they could improve. But I think fans are like out.
I honestly don't know who the audience for this is at this point, because I feel like the few of us that were into Ahsoka got out of it, and now I'm surprised they have a season 2 here. I have heard some rumor stuff that they are throwing everything into season 2. Hayden Christensen is going to be heavily involved. There's going to be all sorts of stuff. So we'll see. But my feelings are pretty low here as well.
Yeah, so, Ray Stevenson's not going to be a part of it. I know that they hired a new actor, but that's going to be an adjustment. And I don't know how that will be taken. I'm sure he's probably a great actor. It's just feels so awkward the way they left it. So to write around that hot mess is gonna take some real skill, and if they can do that and make it decent, props. I'll definitely be huge fans. I'll be a huge fan of if they could do that, but I don't see it. I really don't see it.
Well, we'll see. I mean, there are those pokers in the fire. These are going to come out. We're going to get some of it this year. I think Andor is next up. So we'll find out what's going on. But folks, thanks for sticking with us. We have covered a long form study, a comprehensive history of the history of Lucasfilm in the Kennedy era, starting with 2012, ending with 2025. We'll probably have a follow-up episode several months from now when we know more about 2025 and what happens next. But for those of you who stuck with us, thank you. This all came from a place of love for the original Star Wars fans who we really watched this, and we stuck with Lucasfilm as long as we could. We tried.
We did.
But at the end of the day, they just didn't have the horses to pull this cart, and they didn't have the right people in the right places. So anyway, I will leave with this message.
Remember, the Force will be with you always.
Always.
I like it.
All right. And then Retro, where can people find you?
I thought we were going. You can find me right here on YouTube, and you can find me on X as well. I love retro movies, so you'll find talks and reviews, and every once in a while, every Saturday, you'll find me doing a watch party. So head on over to Retro Nerd Girl on YouTube.
And sub. Paulie, where can people find you?
I'll be here poking Heath's head. TheLatinoSlant.com. Boom.
Sub.
We got a
And
great
Heath?
website. Got a great website. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
And Heath?
Well, you can find my main channel is Heath's Geekverse here on YouTube. That's where I talk about tabletop games for reviews of tabletop games and also designing them, especially role-playing games. Table Talk here on YouTube is where all of the people here on the show tonight have also been to talk about stories and storytelling and all of that. I am also the creator and producer of The Cultists, which has its own YouTube channel. And I've also been on TikTok lately. And like I said at the beginning here, The Cultists on TikTok recently passed 1,000 followers. So the on TikTok, The Cultists and Heath's Geekverse is there. You will find us, and I'm posting shorts there. So
Excellent.
YouTube and TikTok, really.
Well, thanks for sticking with us, everybody, and may the force be with you. Let's see what happens next.
Thank you, Doug.